I felt like an insane person yesterday on social media reading comments about the weight of a wide receiver. Speaking of weight, if you wanted to hear Kevin today, you're going to have to wait until Monday. He's sick. Got a call this morning at like 5:45. He said, Denton, I don't have a voice. I need you to sit in. And I said, you know what, boss? I will sit in for you. So Sheehan is out today. He will be back hopefully on Monday, assuming things are okay and everything ends up well. We got Ben standing at 12. We got Adam Epstein, AWOD Radio at 11. I got a major life event that I'm going to fill Max in on at 10:45. Be excited about that. But I felt like an insane person yesterday because it felt like yesterday was the brunt of this, Max.
Not the day before?
A little bit of the day before, but I saw it all
Then.
yesterday. It
Yeah.
started when a slow-mo video was posted of Deebo Samuel running a route. And people said he looks slow, as if he was going full speed in practice. And then people said, well, actually, he doesn't look slow. When they realized, oh, my God, it's practice. He's jogging through a route. This is not real speed. They changed from he looks slow to he looks fat. How did we get here already? It feels so lazy. I have not ever looked at Deebo Samuel and thought that guy looks fat. Like, wow, that guy's way out of shape. What a loser he is. What has he been living on? Five Guys? Five Guys is like a half mile from the facility. He must be living there all the time. Has nobody ever watched Deebo Samuel play football before? Has nobody ever seen what this guy looks like?
It feels like this narrative kind of started it started towards the end of the season when he kind of fell off.
It started because these idiots in San Francisco, someone leaked it to the media. They think he's fat. And then they ran with it to justify them letting him go as if he wasn't a massive game changer in their offense. I mean, I'm happy for Brandon Ayuk that he got $30 million, but I don't believe that for a second Brandon Ayuk is a better game wrecker than Deebo Samuel is. They didn't want to pay Deebo Samuel. More power to him. I'll gladly take him here to go alongside Terry McLaurin. We'll have an update from Adam Schefter on Terry's contract coming up here in the program as well. I'll gladly take Deebo over Brandon Ayuk, but somehow this narrative leaked from San Francisco and spread faster than COVID in 2020 all the way here to the East Coast. Like just an absolute wildfire, and now everybody is knocking on Deebo. And I debated, Max, whether or not I wanted to actually do this on the show, let alone start the show. We had great hockey last night. We got to talk about the overtime again.
Third time the series.
I mean, this has been an insane series, so I want to talk about the hockey. But I read this morning after I got the call that, hey, Sheehan's going to be out. We need you to sit in. I was like, sick, I'll sit in. So I just start naturally paying a little bit more attention to social media and Twitter. And then I see this tweet from Hogs Haven. And I used to work for Hogs Haven. I used to, do a podcast there back in the day. Shout out to everybody that remembers the Pigpen podcast. It's a very small few, but shout out to y'all nonetheless. And I see them tweet that Deebo, they didn't even tweet that Deebo is Eddie Lacy. They tweeted Deebo Lacy Sr.
They sure did.
And that got my blood boiling, man. I don't know who runs that account. I know the podcast on the account, Trapper Dive guys. Those guys are great. They do a great job. To my knowledge, they are not the ones that are tweeting from that account. But whoever tweeted from that account needs to get their phone locked up in a cage for a week. I don't know if you can ground a full-blown adult. I'm assuming an adult tweeted this, but that adult needs to be grounded. No phone access for at least a week. Eddie Lacy had a clause in his contract that he had to be under 255 pounds. It gave him hundreds of thousands of dollars to be under 255 pounds. Even if Deebo is a little bit above the 215 that he is listed at, you know what the difference is between 255 and 215? That's a whopping 40 pounds. If you see someone one day, Max, and then maybe wait a couple of weeks and you see him again after they've lost 40 pounds, it looks like they lost a human.
Yeah.
They're a completely different looking person. To compare Deebo Samuel to Eddie Lacy is in ridiculously poor taste. And it's also, by the way, it's not accurate. I was standing next to the guy very briefly because Deebo has no idea who I am. But I was standing next to him when I went to Minicamp this week. Minicamp, great time. Got a lot of thoughts on that, by the way. Ja'Cory, Crooksy Merritt.
Ooh.
There might be something there.
Listen, Kevin keeps telling everybody to pump the brakes, but I keep seeing those videos, and I'm liking what I'm seeing.
I texted him about it 2 days ago. Yeah, I texted him about it on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
I had just finished my show. I just worked out. I was cooking breakfast. I texted him. I was like, hey, I was at practice yesterday. This Crooksy Merritt guy looks the part. That doesn't mean much when he's not in pads, but we'll get to that in a second. But I see Debo walking up after they're done with practice. And I'm like, all right, let me be the judge here because the camera is kind of whatever. Let me be the judge. I got 4 eyes. Let's utilize all 4 of them. And he walks up, walks past, and I'm like, he's jacked. He's not cut. He's not built like your AJ Brown. He's not built like your Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson looks like a mega. They call him Megatron for a reason, right? Like,
damn right.
He's not built the same way as that. But you can have very different body types and not be fat. He's just I can't believe I'm about to break down this man's body on radio, but this is just kind of where we're at right now. I feel like I'm doing it in the defense of him, but he's just a stockier dude. Stocky and fat are not the same thing. If you see a stocky person and you see a fat person, there's a noticeable difference between the two of them. Fat people ain't fast. Stocky people are fast. And Debo got some speed as they ramped things up more and more throughout the course of the week, and they started to do drills actually running against one another and some 7-on-7s, a little bit of 11-on-11s, no pads, which is fine. You don't want to see anyone hitting. Not yet, at least. But you started to see the actual speed a little bit more. And that's actually what ticked me off the most about the Hogs Haven thing, is because they took an actual video of him moving at good speed and then decided to just join in the trolling with a Debo Lacey Sr. Again, it's a pathetic thing to say on social media. I was livid when I saw that. My blood was boiling this morning. I have made the decision, Max. You and I rode together last year on Luke McCaffrey. And that is not going to stop because Wes Welker is a part of this coaching staff.
And he changed his number.
And he changed his number to 11. 11's a good number.
He's got Edelman's number now.
Yeah, you got Edelman's number. I'm going to make those comparisons. I am riding with every single Debo Samuel prop week 1.
Woo!
Over in catches, over in yards. Might do a little bit of combo between rushing and receiving yards because my guess is he gets at least a couple of carries week 1. I'm going to bet a Debo anytime touchdown. At this point, I kind of want this to continue just so it fuels my nature to bet Debo. And maybe if this continues enough and idiots scream loud enough that the books will actually give us super favorable numbers, I'm telling you right now, Debo is going to be fine week 1. He is going to be totally fine. The conversation about him being overweight and being fat is just complete nonsense. And it was taken because someone in San Francisco decided to leak that to save their ass, as if that organization is not starting to sink. If you haven't realized that by now, welcome to the party. You're a little late, but welcome to the party. That San Francisco organization is starting to sink. They are on the downtrot more than they are on the uptrot, while this organization is very much on the rise. So I'm rocking with Debo Samuel with every single prop. There is not a number that is too high that I will not bet on Debo Samuel come week 1. Debo
I like it.
Lacey Sr. Oh my God. I was throwing punches in my room like I was a teenager.
It was disrespectful. It was very funny that that was the talk of the town yesterday morning was the Debo Samuel video. And then the second I get home, it was what? I want to say 3:10. The Commanders post a video of Debo running much faster than he ran in that video before. Just a little subtle response to the big back allegations.
Hey, like we're seeing what's going on here, because it is also important to mention they are not the ones that posted that first video.
Yeah,
that was from what they have at Minicamp is you are allowed to. They have like a little hill that overlooks the practice squad or the practice field. If you have ever been to training camp, you know that they have 4 fields, and when you go to training camp, they use 2 that are more towards the right, where you can fit a bunch of people. That's where they put the stands, and you kind of get that. Forest is not the right word because it's in Ashburn, Virginia, but you get like that collection of trees by the side. If you are a child or if you have kids, your kids have probably stood over there and watched before. I know I did. I was standing over there when I was younger, watching like Santana Moss and at the time, old Bobby Three Sticks. What a time that was. They were on the other field. So for Minicamp, they do the other field. And what they do is they allow media members to stand up when they are running 7-on-7s or 11-on-11s on this little ledge so you can watch. But what you can't do is like get clear looks at communication. You can't hear play calls, things of that nature. It's just stuff that NFL teams want to keep in house. And I would imagine that every NFL team across the league does something similar to that, but you're allowed to tape. So what they were running when Debo ran that route, if someone has said this on the show, Max, stop me and we can move to hockey. But what they were doing was they were just running 7-on-7s, and Debo got the break, kind of jogging through. Jaden finds him, passes on the money. He gets into the end zone. Next rep, line it back up. Like you're moving, but you're not moving at 100% or game speed. You're probably moving at about 60% 70%, just to get the legs out, maybe hit a little bit of a stride, and then you move on to the next play. That's what that first video was. The second one was a little bit more closer to game speed, it looked like, probably in the direction of like 75 to 80%.
Yeah. I mean, we touched on it a little bit yesterday about what George Kittle and Bobby Wagner said. And like, you just kind of run half speed on install. Like that's what minicamp is for, is to get everybody up to speed on the playbook, have them see it and run their routes in real time and understand what they're looking at on the field. You're going to be going half speed in training camp or in minicamp, not even training camp. This is just kind of how it works.
It is. It was literally the first day.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the first they'd done. I mean, Debo was here at OTAs. He'd done some other stuff in the offseason, but it was literally the first day. Like there were certain guys that were held out of that. Like Laramie Tunsil didn't do a whole lot that day. Did a little bit of the drills, didn't do a ton of the drills. Linnell has talked about that at length on social media. If you're not following us on social media at the Team 980, you can follow me at the Denton Day. Laramie Tunsil didn't participate a lot day number 1. I believe he ramped up a little bit. Jalen Noel wasn't out there, or Jalen Lane wasn't out there. Michael Gallup wasn't out there for a majority of it. He's nursing a hamstring injury. Even on day number 1, Bobby Wagner wasn't out there. So it literally is just the ramp up. It's the slowest day that you're going to go for the whole week. And that just happens to be the video that was produced on social media, and everybody lost their absolute mind about that. You want to join the conversation on the show? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. It is the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980 with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. But we got to talk the hockey. Let's do a little bit of that hockey last night. An overtime thriller. Edmonton gets the win to tie the series at 2 apiece. Here's the game-winning goal from Leon Draisaitl.
Evan Bouchard back in his own zone now with Ekholm. But Colson, nice pass across. Here's Jackson. He scores! Leon Draisaitl's won it in game 4 for the Oilers, and the series is tied at 2.
Oh, man.
The best goal scorer in the NHL doing what the best goal scorer in the NHL does. He wins it for Edmonton. They tie that series up 2-2. I don't know about you, Max. I am not expecting to see Stuart Skinner in goal in game number 5. Get him out.
It's tough, man. Like Skinner, he is so hot and cold. But there are a lot of I don't think that first period was his fault. I understand about
being not immediately, but being at that one spot. I guess it was 8 minutes in at a 2-man disadvantage is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, you put your goalie in an awful spot, which
like,
Edmonton was.
Yeah. It's like, what are you supposed to do? But Stuart Skinner is the type of guy. It's like, he's either letting in 4 goals or he's letting in 0. And it's a way to communicate to your team by putting in your backup goalie that, hey, you guys need to tighten the hell up. You guys need to start diving in front of pucks and you guys need to help your goaltender out. And Edmonton kind of received the message. They started playing a lot harder. They found their game in the second period. But
they scored. So they were outscored by Florida in like an 8-minute span, 3-0.
Yeah.
I mean, and not quite a blink of an eye, but it was like
they jumped
3 blinks of an eye. And you're like, oh God, it's 3-0. And considering how the previous game had went, I did feel like pulling Skinner was the response that Edmonton had to do. Like the coaching staff, you just can't leave him in there. The guy's basically getting crucified in net by this Florida Panthers team, and especially with the Chuck getting going, because you're like, oh my God. Like, it's like, oh, you were down 2-1 and Chuck wasn't even playing fantastic, and now he's playing great, and you're like, Christ, like we're going to be in a really bad spot here. So I think the move to put Picard in there was a good one, but it did wake them up a little bit. And I mean, when Edmonton is awoken, they are this beast. They have so much offense and they are so fast with the puck. I did scratch my head a little bit and say, maybe you should have started with Picard, but it was a tough first period that they were able to rebound from.
Yeah, he did impress me quite a bit coming down the stretch. That last goal with 20 seconds left was just so tough. The scramble out in front, it was a frantic play, and credit to Florida, man. They're one of the most built for this teams I've ever seen in the Stanley Cup final. So
they're like the perfect team.
I
mean, they are built to perfection. They have a great goalie. Mm-hmm. They have a bunch of different dudes on offense that can score. Defensively, they're an absolute unit. It's literally like watching
they're so
a
physical.
Well-oiled machine. They're
so
fast
physical.
And they're physical, but it has never felt like in watching them, at least more frequently now, that they let the physicality get the best of them. Because how often do you see teams in the playoffs? They try and be physical to a point where now they're leaving things open on the back end. They leave passing lanes open and they get shredded on those. It feels like Florida is the opposite. They have like this perfect marriage of physicality, speed, but also intelligence to not have them play outside the foundations of their defense.
Yeah, the first time I kind of really realized like how important finding the triple point, the perfect point where the triple point, solid, liquid, and gas. But finding that just one point where everything comes together. You have speed, you have physicality, you have the IQ, the passing IQ, like the game IQ to just bring everything together. And so the Caps had it in 2018 and Florida's had it for the past couple years. It's been so impressive to watch. And every time I watch them, it really does kind of bring me back to 2018, which is kind of nice. But yeah, man, this is going to be a great Stanley Cup final. It's been a great one so far
because this is the second
game
this is where you've had a game time goal in like the final 30 seconds. I guess it was probably game one, right? Where Edmonton had one with 19 seconds left. It was like right at the buzzer because I was ready to go to bed, staying up watching.
Yeah. Like, you're like, oh,
I'm ready to go to sleep. Like get some shut eye.
That was me last night.
Gotta be awake early, and then all of a sudden, at the drop of a dime, it's boom. All right, we're going to overtime, and you're like, well, all right, I'll just take my seat back on the couch here. Maybe go get more of a little bit of a drink and keep this party rolling. I love the overtime thrillers. Are really what differentiate, and they have been so far, the Stanley Cup from the NBA. Now, with that said, the NBA Finals, I think, has been great.
I think we might get both these series going 7 games.
I would love that. I prefer 6 in the Pacers because I feel better about the Pacers winning in 6 and 7. Because I think that the Indiana home crowd is just crazy. We're gonna break that down in a little bit more depth as the show goes along. We do have Game 4 tonight. I am expecting a bounce back from OKC from at least one guy on the Oklahoma City Thunder, that being Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But these NHL playoffs, man, they're so electric, just so electric. And when you have a team in Edmonton that didn't play great in the first period and still hung 5 goals on one of the best teams in the NHL without Connor McDavid scoring. Because Connor McDavid is playing well. I don't think he's playing as well as he did last year when these two teams squared off for the first time, but he is playing well. It's so much fun to watch. We also got word that we had the goalie in Winnipeg won the MVP and the best goaltender.
Yeah, it was a good video too.
I didn't see the video. Was it a good video?
Yeah, I mean the whole bit this offseason for the NHL has been surprising people with awards. Like they did if you saw the Spencer Carberry video where he was doing an interview with Monumental, and then boom, they bring in the trophy, his family, and then his extended family surprises him. So that was a really cool one. But for Hellebuck, he went out fishing, and so his family got all set up. They brought the Vezina out because I mean it was kind of he already knew that he was.
He already knew he was winning that one.
Right.
The MVP I felt was a little different.
Yeah, and then they were going to do the picture, and they were like, "Wait, there's one more." And he was like, "What? One more trophy?" And they bring it out, and he's like, "What the hell?" So it was a very cool video, very cool surprise for him. I didn't think that. I really didn't think he was going to win the Hart. I didn't
either. I thought it was going to be Draisaitl.
Yeah, because I mean, you got the Rocket Richard, and he's been playing so well. But yeah, good for Hellebuck, man. I'm very happy for him. He had an incredible regular season. So yeah, well deserved.
I've always wondered. I don't know this for a fact, but as we get more into this normality of surprises, and we are going to surprise you, and look, your family is here, and look, your extended family is here, because we've seen this done for NFL Hall of Fame. It almost feels like they've kind of been the ones that have pioneered it with that giant human being that just shows up at your door.
Shannon Sharp is in Sterling Sharp's basement.
He's just like everyone's just there. I've always wondered if you're bringing in extended family that is not from around here, is that like a text that goes out and says, "Hey, you guys should be here at this time"? Or is like the league in this instance paying for them to be there? Are the Capitals paying for the extended family to get out there and celebrate there? That I mean, in today's economy, that might be a little bit of a difference on who can make it out there and who can't.
I'm gonna say I'd like to think that
I would like that would. It feels like it would be the correct answer there, right?
Say, if you have a good enough season to win one of these awards, the least the NHL could do is fly your family out to present you with the trophy.
Exactly. But I've just always been curious about that. Like, how does that go? And then are you telling them all of the information? Because are you trusting everybody within the family to keep it tight-lipped, to not spoil it? Maybe a rogue text goes by. Like, if you knew this information, let's just say 2 weeks in advance. If you like, all right,
Sure.
you are a part of the family, we'll say Carbs. He's winning. He is winning the award, 2 weeks in advance. If you go out on Friday night, get a little overserved, like what happens if you send a rogue text message? Are they letting everybody in on that, or is it just the need to know and everyone else thinks they're just going on a trip? I have so many questions. I don't know that you can answer all those questions.
I wish I could.
Or any of those questions, but I have a lot of questions and I need them to be answered. I also have fears. And what my biggest fear is for the Commanders has nothing to do with the weight of Deebo Samuel, but it is justified. I will share that with you when we get back. It is the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. Kevin Sheehan show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. He is sick, under the weather. He will be back hopefully on Monday. I don't consider myself to be a fearful person, but I do have some. And I have some regarding the Commanders. None of them are about the weight of Deebo Samuel. You'll hear what Dan Quinn said about Deebo Samuel coming up in 15 minutes, plus a life update, a major life update for me. This is not like announcing that I'm having a child, so that's not what this is. But it is still important nonetheless. But my biggest fear right now, Max, is waking up one day, and I say my prayers every day that this never happens. But my biggest fear right now is waking up and scrolling through Twitter at the sharp hour of 4:30 a.m. and seeing Jaden Daniels or any important player for that matter on the Washington Commanders hanging out with one of these idiot streamers. Because there is not a single good thing that has ever come from hanging out with these idiot streamers.
Mainly one.
This moron, Aiden Ross, might be the biggest downpuller that I have ever seen come across social media or have any sort of real influence. The way that guy drags down everyone to this pool of filth that he swims in, my biggest fear is jumping on, and even if it's for like some sort of charity event, and seeing Jane Daniels sitting in that dude's little janky-ass room just hanging out. I do know that there is a streamer that is local. I think his name is Jakey Rondo.
Jakey Rondo, yes. He FaceTimed Jaden after the Hail Mary. That was a fun bit.
And he seems to, like, he is the only one that I think is passable right
Agreed,
now.
Yeah.
And I say that, I don't know much about him.
Well, because he's a fan first, you know what I mean? So he understands.
He's a fan first and seemingly not an idiot second, third, or fourth.
True.
Because this other dude is an idiot first, second, third, and fourth. And then a fan after that. The reason I bring this up is twofold. One, Antonio Brown is now facing attempted murder charges from hanging out with Aiden Ross. We have seen that viral video that went that took storm weeks ago, maybe a month ago now at this point, where Antonio Brown was getting in fights at a celebrity boxing event and then was running around with a pistol that was then shot. And Antonio Brown then got on stream with Aiden Ross and said he didn't do it. It was my CTE. I don't even remember. And then he tweeted saying I was not the one that did that, despite video evidence of him being the one
and eyewitness accounts.
Eyewitness accounts, video evidence, and just the fact that Antonio Brown is, by every sense of the word, one of the dumbest people that has access to the internet. One of the dumbest people that has access to the internet. He's done stuff like this before, but he had the backing of the NFL, so he could get away with it. He was throwing rocks at mailmen. Now, he wasn't actively playing at the time because he was running away from contracts. He was being what Antonio Brown has been over the past like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it was. The timeline was really ever since that Vontaze Burfict hit. But now he's firing guns. So Miami-Dade has a warrant out for him for attempted murder. Why did this happen? Because they're hanging out with streamers. These dudes don't want anything positive for anyone that comes on their stream. They don't want nothing positive. They want something positive for them. But Aiden Ross is somewhere sitting in his little cave. I don't know where that guy lives. But I'm assuming he lives in America.
Florida somewhere,
Florida
sure.
somewhere. He's sitting in his little Floridian cave thinking about how he can monetize athletes, how he can monetize their platforms to make himself bigger and to gain popularity and do all these things, not giving a damn what comes from it. So I don't ever want to see Jaden Daniels sitting in that little room of his. I don't want to see Mikey Sanders sitting in that room. There's not a single person on this roster. Laramie Tunsil, I don't want to see them sitting in this room of his, because if the Antonio Brown, attempted murder charges weren't enough, Tyler Hero was on with Aiden Ross. Did you see, Max, what Tyler Hero said with Aiden Ross?
I did. Do you want me to pull it up? Because I can pull it up.
Pull it up and check to see if there are cuss words in it first. Because I don't know how
you know what? That's a great point.
So do that. I will filibuster while you do that. But Tyler Hero got on this guy's live and said, I don't know if Tyler Hero was under the influence of recreational drugs. I don't know. I don't care. He said he does not believe in any history that took place before 1950. As if the world started at 1950. One, that's a very odd time frame to select 1950. It's not a great time frame to select. It also goes against some of the cultural values of the NBA going on at the moment and just all sports leagues going on at the moment. But it's another example of why you should not be hanging out with streamers. He doesn't want nothing good for him.
And I'm going to play the cleanest portion of this that I can.
All right, so this is the cleanest portion of Tyler Hero being a dummy on a stream with a social media influencer.
That's about as clean as you're going to get it.
Nothing. Not like
nothing?
nothing.
Like
That's a pretty tough take.
English. You've been speaking English, right?
That's a pretty tough take for a white dude playing in the NBA. That's not a good one.
World War II just didn't happen. Then I don't know. Pearl Harbor. I just can't think of anything good that happened before 1950 that I believe.
Dog, nothing good comes from. Remember a couple of years ago? This was during the pandemic. John Allen got himself in a little bit of hot water. He was on his stream. Now, here's the thing. What John Allen said, it very much conflicts with what Tyler Hero just said. Because John Allen said he wanted to hang out with a guy that was very prominent in the 1940s for reasons that are not positive, although they have popped up around this country a little bit more than I would like to have that. He doesn't. John Allen and Tyler Hero might need to have a conversation.
It would be.
Also, does he not know that the moon landing happened after 1950? Like he said, I don't believe in the moon landing.
Do you want to listen to what he just said again?
And then said, I don't believe in anything that happened before 1950. My brother in Christ, the moon landing did not happen in 1950.
I don't think he knows that.
I mean, why? Streamers are bad.
Agreed.
Streamers are terrible. Everybody looks like an idiot. Tyreek Hill was hanging out with Baby Gronk this offseason. I already knew I didn't want Tyreek Hill with the Commanders. As soon as he was hanging out with his Baby Gronk guy, who has a father that is surrounding his, what is Baby Gronk, like 13 years old?
Yep.
His 13-year-old with what I could only assume,
which
respectively,
when he was like 8,
are workers. That is what we would call them.
Models on a certain website.
Models on websites. Workers. Not good. Nothing good from the streamers, man. If Jaden Daniels pops up there, you will catch me laying down in traffic in 495. I'll be swimming in the Potomac.
Oh, I'll drown myself in the waters of the Potomac.
I'm gonna come out of there with a fourth eye, and it's gonna be like on my back somewhere, not even in like a cool spot, because we know how dirty that Potomac water is. If I see Jaden Daniels hanging out with his moron Aiden Ross, I will be swimming in the Potomac. Stay away from the streamers. Oh my God, it's terrible. All right, you'll hear what Dan Quinn said about Deebo Samuel that I think will hopefully, if you are of the belief that he is overweight and not fast, hopefully this will ease your mind. You'll hear that coming up, plus a life update from me, plus maybe a little bit of advice that Max is going to have to give me for after the show. That all comes your way when we get back here. It is the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
All right, the Edmonton Oilers, they pull off the comeback win in overtime after the Panthers tie it in the final 20 seconds. Edmonton becomes one of 7 teams in NHL history to overcome a 3-goal deficit in the Stanley Cup final to win. The last to do it was Carolina over Edmonton in 2006. This is Leon Draisaitl's 4th overtime goal of the playoffs. The Oilers win 5-4. Miami-Dade police have issued an arrest warrant for Antonio Brown on attempted murder charges after he was seen on video fighting with multiple people following a boxing event last month. At the end of the video, gunshots can be heard, and according to witnesses, Brown fired the shots after the altercation had ended. AB alleges he was jumped for his jewelry. The U.S. Open is still going right now. JJ Spawn sits atop the leaderboard at 4 under. Let me refresh the page to give you the quickest update I can. Thurston Lawrence in second at 3 under. Victor Hovland, Siwoo Kim sit at 2 under. Sam Burns, Daniel Berger, Ben Griffin, and Thomas Dietrich all sit 1 under par. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 golfers under par at Oakmont this week, or well, today. And the Nats, they get swept by the Mets. I don't have the final score in front of me, but I'm going to pull it up right now. I'm going to filibuster as long as I can because I didn't write it down like a dummy. But the Nats, they lose yesterday. They'll take on the Marlins. I believe that's today. They lose to the Mets 4-3. They will be taking on the Marlins today at 6:45 on 106.7 The Fan. Charlie and Dave will have you Cover with Nats on deck at 6:15. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1 and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what is trending.
Debo, I think, has been very impressive to me for maybe a different reason than I thought. He was such a difficult person to tackle that you spend so much time. How are you going to tackle this person? And somewhere along the way, I've forgotten until out here, like how fast he is. And so sometimes when you're playing against a receiver, you say, man, you better either get him at the line or you better be on top of him. with him so many times was there were so many, run after catch plays that we had a tackling plan and how would you go about it. And then I can remember one time like he just ran by somebody down the field on a deep ball. And I was like, yeah, I forgot about that. So that it didn't surprise me, but it was like, maybe I missed talking about it to that space because it was easily reminded like he's one of the fastest players on the team.
I thought he was slow. Twitter told me the last 3 days that Debo was slow. He's not fast. He's fat, but the coach is saying that is not the case. That was Dan Quinn on Debo Samuel after yesterday's practice. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980 at the Denton Day on Twitter. Ben Standing will join us at noon. Adam Epstein in 15 minutes here on the Team 980. We've been having this conversation this morning about Debo Samuel, people calling him fat, people calling him slow, and Dan Quinn was at the microphone yesterday singing his praises about how fast he is, what it looks like to see Debo Samuel's speed in person. What I've learned from this week, Max, is that everybody needs to get to training camp. This is not a plug for the team. I don't think training camp costs money. I don't think it does it?
I think you have to buy tickets.
I think it's a raffle. But everybody needs to get there so they can see what Debo looks like in person, especially when there are pads on, because you'll see the speed. I'm curious to see how they will end up using him, given the speed that they have spoke so highly of, particularly what Dan Quinn said in that answer when he's talking about a scenario, which I believe happened when he was in Atlanta. If I'm like just doing mental math, I don't think there was a big overlap, if at all, between Debo and Dan Quinn when Dan was in Seattle. I don't think they got to see the Legion of Boom. So I think this took place when when DQ was in Atlanta, beating him on a deep ball, because it feels like a lot of the conversation in the acquisition of Debo Samuel is, boom, this is your screen guy. You'll have Terry for the deep routes. We've seen a lot of numbers that have come out this offseason. I believe the number was, I think it was 383. It was either 383 or 343, the amount of yards that Terry accumulated in 2024 on go balls. And that was the most in the NFL, according to the 33rd team. He led the league in yards on go routes. So the thought has been, all right, Terry is your deep guy. Debo is going to be more of your intermediate and short routes. And then you'll find like a Noah Brown, who unfortunately went down earlier this week, although we haven't had any sort of real information on what that injury is. Hopefully Ben Standing gives us maybe a little bit at noon. But you have those three guys. Noah will be like your deep intermediates. Terry's going to be your long routes, and then Debo is going to be your screen guys. But I do find it unique that Dan Quinn is bringing up a play where Debo is running past defenders on go routes, utilizing some of that speed. I think we might see a little bit more of that in this year's offense as well. So maybe it won't just be Terry being the guy that is mostly on the receiving end of the deep shots, which I think is really going to benefit the offense. I was worried with the conversation about Terry just being your deep ball guy. I think there's a lot of routes that Terry runs really, really well, but it also starts to become a little bit of a tell. It sort of was a bit of a tell with De'Ami Brown at points in 2024, and we've had it in years past where you see a certain guy come onto the field and you're like, he's going long. The one that I can think of the most, this is like 15 years ago now almost at this point, but Max, maybe you remember Aldrick Robinson, a guy that played alongside Robert Griffin.
Sure do.
Had that touchdown on Thanksgiving against Dallas in 2012. When Aldrick Robinson came on the field, he's going deep. He plays like 6 snaps a game. He's going deep. I was a little fearful that was going to be kind of what this offense became, with Debo being the screen guy, Terry the deep guy, and what have you. But with what Dan just said, my underlying takeaway is that they're going to utilize Debo in a lot more than just some of the short stuff, some of this weapon X motion behind the backfield. They're going to use him to really keep the defense honest by sending him deep. Because if it's two guys that you got to worry about, Terry, who has proven this year with a real quarterback that he can be very effective when it comes to going deep, and then Debo Samuel, who has proven in San Francisco that he is a game wrecker, and as Dan Quinn aptly told you, he is a threat when it comes to going deep. I do think that takes your offense to a much better level, and I think it's going to mean a very, very high ceiling for Jaden Daniels. Chris Sims released his quarterback ranking list, which he does every single offseason. We will get into that list in about 45 minutes. So you want to stay tuned for that conversation. I happen to really like Chris Sims. I think his quarterback lists are usually pretty on the money. The biggest downside, as it has been for years, has been that Washington has always had bad quarterbacks. So I have not liked the list because it's like, oh, Taylor Heineke, 30. Like, damn it. Oh, Sam Howell, 26. Oh my God, we just can't get above these 24 markers, right? I don't know if Washington in the last 40 years has ever had a quarterback that eclipsed 24 on Chris Sims's list. I can confirm they do heading into 2025.
Thank God times have changed.
It is very nice. It's very nice to live in this world that we live in now. Speaking of, I was going to save this for hour 2, but I do think it's relevant now. Have you been paying attention to some of the stuff going on in Cleveland?
Such as?
ESPN Cleveland tweeted this. This is a tweet from them. It is a quarterback tracker tracking your OTA and minicamp stats.
Oh, no.
We have seen some awful times here in Washington, D.C. We have seen some awful quarterbacks here in Washington, D.C. I don't recall a time
it's real.
that we have ever logged training camp not even training camp, OTA and minicamp stats. Here are the stats, because I know you're wondering, like, all right, well, what are these stats? Joe Flacco was 18 of 35 for 2 touchdowns across OTAs and minicamps. Shedeur Sanders was 41 of 53 for 9 touchdowns.
The highest clip.
And an interception. The only quarterback that threw an interception. I don't know if that's more about the quarterbacks in Cleveland or the defensive backs in Cleveland, but I digress. Kenny Pickett was 38 of 63 for 7 touchdowns. Dylan Gabriel was 48 of 83 for 8 touchdowns. God bless Jaden Daniels. God bless Adam Peters.
This is a down bad
This is awful.
I've never seen before in my life.
I mean, imagine being the person that was on assignment for counting this, because you got to think that took place in a meeting. You know, you meet before OTAs with your editorial board or your station director or whoever was in charge of this. You go in to sit in the meeting, you're like, all right, what are we gonna do for minicamp? That's fun. You get to see football again. Like, I was standing out there on Tuesday with, Linnell and I were out there, and we were just talking to one another. We're like, man, it is great that we get to be out here and doing this. Like, we have real things to talk about. We are watching actual football take place, not obviously no pads, none of that, but we're watching football nonetheless take place. Counting reps for your rookie quarterbacks like this is disgraceful.
Disgusting.
It is awful. Cleveland, I mean, every time it feels like Cleveland has gone low, they find new ways to get lower. This might be worse. I'm 100% serious when I say this. This might be worse than going 0-16. Is keeping this and then tweeting it. Because at least with the 0-16, you were like, we suck. We know we're going to suck. Hopefully going 0-16 brings us a franchise quarterback.
Say, at least there's a reward for going 0-16. This is bad.
I mean, he got him Baker, and then Baker didn't really work out the way they thought it would. But this is awful. So I told you, Adam Epstein in 10 minutes, I told you I have a life event that I want to share.
Let's hear it.
I had to preface this. This is not like me announcing that I'm having a child. And I'm prefacing that because my parents are watching. And I'm like, this is not the way I was going to tell them when that time eventually comes. I got suckered in peer pressure to sign up for the DC half marathon in September. So my wife texted me on Wednesday. She was with a couple of her friends. It's not a Bible study, but it's like more in line with a Bible study. So it's not like they were drinking or anything like that. But she's sitting with her friends, and she texts me. She says, hey, Amy is doing the DC half marathon. Amy is one of the friends. You should do it with her. And so for context, last year I ran the Army 10-miler in the city, and it was a phenomenal race. 25,000 people out there. It was a great time. You're running by the monuments. You're running on like Independence and all this stuff. It was a really cool time, and it was a really fun time if you're into running, right? And the city showed out. You know, my wife was at fiance at the time, but my wife was at certain stops. She had a Jaden Daniels theme sign, which I thought was cute because they went and played Baltimore after that. I did butcher the dates. I thought the DC 10-miler was the week where they played Carolina, which was a 425 game, which is why I signed up for it. And then it was actually the week they played Baltimore. So I did the 10-miler and then went and did an hour of pregame with Linnell and then did the in-game show with Linnell. It was a very busy Sunday. this week or this year, the Army 10 miler is on a Sunday where the team is not playing. They're playing on Monday night against Chicago that week. So I was like, bet, we're good. So she texted me and she said, you should run the DC half marathon. I was like, I don't know, sweetie. Like, what is the date of the DC half marathon? Thinking I was going to be saved by the Commanders.
Hoping to God.
And she said September 14th. And I was like, early in the season, let's go. Like, that's so early in the season. Clearly they're going to be playing on a Sunday. Like, I'm going to be good. And I had signed up for a half marathon probably about a year and a half ago, got sick, couldn't do it. So I do want to do it, but thinking you want to do a half marathon versus actually signing up and then doing a half marathon are very different things. You can't fake 13.1 miles. So I'm looking up the schedule because I don't have it memorized, date specific at least. I'm looking up the schedule, and as I'm Googling their schedule, Max, I'm coming to this realization. I was like, oh no, they play Green Bay week 2 on Thursday. And I was like, when does the season start? How late into September does it start? And sure enough, week 2 is September 14th, which means they do not play on September 14th. And I said, if the Skins are not playing on September 14th, I will do this half marathon. So nevertheless, I signed up for the DC half marathon, and I'm walking with my wife the next day. So this was on Wednesday. On Thursday, I started a plan. It's like, I'm not just freeballing this. I'm not YOLOing this. I'm actually going to try and like not kill myself during this half marathon training block, right? So I start a plan. It was like a very short run just to like kind of gauge what is the benchmark, what have you, right? I do this run, and my wife meets me outside. Hot as hell, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Hot as hell outside.
Summer's back.
My wife meets me outside, and we're walking, and we're talking about the half marathon because she didn't get back until late on Wednesday. I was dead asleep because I got to wake up at 4:30. She gets back, and we're walking, and I've been thinking about the half marathon. I'm excited. Like a part of the Army 10 miler was it was very nice to see her at mile 2 and mile 7. I needed it at mile 7 because your boy was dying at mile 7. So her and I are walking, and she's like, yeah, it's going to be so fun. Amy's going to be there. And I told her about another friend that I texted that might come and run the DC half. And she's like, I won't be there. And I'm thinking like, yeah, you're not going to run. Like, she's not a half marathon runner. I'm barely a half marathon runner. I was like, yeah, you're not going to run a half marathon. I realized that. She's like, no. I have that work trip. And I was like, oh, she's not going to be in the country. She's like, I have that thing that you're driving me to, the flight to take me out of the country on September 13th. And I was like, oh no. I was like, my wife convinced me to do this half marathon, and she is now not going to be there for the half marathon. But you know what they say, Max? Mama ain't raised no wimp. So I'm doing the half marathon. But this is where I needed your advice. Yesterday was the first day of the plan. And by the way, if there are any runners out there that have advice on a half marathon, please, like for the love of God, help me out. Tweet me at the Denton Day. If you're in the YouTube comments, comment. I need tips. I need advice. I don't want to, if your advice is don't do it, I don't need that advice. I've already done it. I paid for it, and I didn't get the part where I could get a refund. So I paid for this entire thing. I'm going to do the damn thing. But today is supposed to be day 2 of the workouts. Yesterday was like this benchmark. It was a 9-minute run. It was like a 2-minute warm up, 5 minutes of what they called strong running, and then a 2-minute cool down. I did that at like probably like 9:45, where it was like 78 degrees outside. The plan was to do the run today, which is an hour run. It's a 60-minute run at 9:15. I got a call at 5:45 to come do this show. Kevin's sick. Hey, we need you to fill in. I gladly will. This will be fine. I hate running on treadmills with like a fiery passion. The passion that I have for hating treadmills might be hotter than it is outside. The problem is, as I look at my weather thing on the computer right now, it says 90 degrees outside.
Yeah, it's bad.
I got to run on a treadmill today, don't I?
And it's insanely humid, so you're going to be, treadmill time is for the day. Unless you want to wait until like right before you go to bed.
I can't do the right before I go to bed thing.
Yeah, it's fair.
I'm much more of an early runner, so I can, one, get it out of the way.
Yeah.
But then not monitor my food intake. Because
Fair.
I don't know if you know this, and unfortunately, this does not apply to you. I don't think. Chipotle is doing an hour buy one, get one between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. if you have tattoos for Friday the 13th.
Oh, nice.
Tatted like a Chipotle bag. So if you are in the area and you want Chipotle, you got to go Chipotle, but it's between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. So I'm planning Chipotle for a very late lunch because your boy got some tattoos, and I'm going to get a buy one, get one.
I'll
one
get to draw in on myself, and maybe
honestly, if you can get a fake tattoo between now and 4 p.m., it might be It might be something to look into. But so I can't do the late night runs, and plus it'll be still like 88 degrees. We went to a concert, which is where this hat is from that I'm wearing. It says "Can't Hide Country," because you know what you think of when you think of me. You think of country music, right?
That's right.
Yeah, exactly that. But we walked out of this concert like 9:45, and it was 86 degrees outside. I was like, this is brutal. It's like it's early June. It was 50 degrees on my birthday on May 28th. And now it's like 90 degrees.
It was so nice for so long, and now here we are.
And now you're like, welcome to the summer. All right. Adam Epstein's going to join us coming up on the other side. We'll get his thoughts on Debo. Is he fat? Is he not fat? Plus, AWOD just announced his football fest. We'll get those details as well. It's a Kevin Sheehan show on the Team 980 with Denton sitting in for Kevin. Chris Sims ranked his NFL quarterbacks as he does each offseason. You'll find out where Jaden Daniels landed on that list in about 15, 20 minutes. But right now we head out to the phones. We welcome on our guy, Adam Epstein. You know him as AWOD Radio. That's where you can find him on Twitter. AWOD, what's happening, my friend? How are you?
Denton, what's up, man? How are you? You cruising through the summer?
I'm cruising through the summer. I was just telling Max, my producer, the story that I just signed up for a half marathon. So I will quite literally be running through the summer.
Yeah, I enjoyed the segment, and it made me very uninterested in running a marathon. I will never sign up for a marathon. That's insane. I'm thinking about doing like a 10K next year. And if you're committed to the half marathon, you know, I'm not a wimp either. I'll do the 5K or a 10K.
You can definitely, a 10K you can definitely do. I believe in you.
Monument Avenue 10K, baby. You got to sign up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right, A1, one of our conversations today has been on the weight of Deebo Samuel. I think that people calling him fat, including a fan page that called him Deebo Lacey Sr., is getting a little out of pocket. Where do you stand on the is Deebo eating too much?
I feel like this is what happens when you're one of the it teams. You're one of the teams to beat a contender. Haters are coming from out of nowhere to hate on Deebo Samuel. I'm not sure if it's bitter San Francisco fans, if it's like bitter Green Bay Packers fans, or other teams that Deebo had beaten along the way of this incredible NFL career that he's had. He's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. I want more trolls on social media so that it can get into Deebo's mind and he can just ball the heck out. I don't think the weight is going to be an issue at all. I actually loved George Kittle coming to his defense, Bobby Wagner coming to his defense. It's just installs. It's not a big deal. And I just kind of also disagreed with anybody that watched the film. I didn't see a fat man. I saw a man running way faster than I ever could, catching a ball and getting into the end zone. So I am so excited for what Deebo Samuel can do in the Cliff Kingsbury's offense I didn't think this was a big deal at all.
I'd said to start the show, I'm hammering every week one prop. Catches, yards, touchdowns. I'm all over Deebo week one.
Yeah, why not? You know, I'd be all over his futures for the entire season. And I think the Commanders could be in a situation here where Deebo Samuel might even have a better season than Terry McLaurin. He could. I don't think Terry's going to get anywhere near 13 touchdowns again. I think he'll be a 1,000-yard receiver, but Deebo may be a 1,000-yard all-purpose if he gets the ball on the ground and we're able to establish the run with him at times. I'm really excited to see him around the red zone. I think he could be a 10-touchdown guy with a couple on the ground and a couple of passes caught as well. So I'm so excited for Deebo Samuel. There's no negativity in my mind.
So you mentioned Terry McLaurin. We're talking with Adam Epstein, AWOD Radio on Twitter. He hosts on the weekends here on 106.7 The Fan and daily in Richmond from 12 to 3 on 910 The Fan. You mentioned Terry McLaurin. What is your level of panic about him not attending minicamp?
It's a 2 out of 10. It's not very big at all. I'm not worried at all. I think our buddies Beamish and Finley hit it perfectly. This happened 3 years ago. And then I think it was July 11th he signed the contract, right? So maybe on July 11th, I'll move the panic meter up a notch. Me and Michael Phillips, who's my coworker in Richmond, have been saying we will panic September 7th if he's not ready to play against the New York Giants, because you absolutely need to win that game. And you got to beat the Giants twice. You got to beat the brakes off them if you want to be a contender this season. But that's how far away we are from worrying.
What about the Noah Brown injury that happened earlier this week? Because I'm a little worried about that just because details have been kind of spare at this point, Adam. So that does worry me a bit about what his future is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to hear good news, but I don't know that I was as excited for Noah Brown this year as everybody else. I was more interested in Luke McCaffrey's development. And of course, my guy, Jalen Lane from Virginia Tech, those two taking a step forward with Deebo and Terry McLaurin making the solid four, the core four. Noah Brown can be a great possession receiver, like a 2nd and 10, go get an 8-yard catch. But I never thought he was going to be like a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 3 on a team that contends for the Super Bowl. And so, look, I wanted him on the field. I hope this injury is not a big deal, but I'm not that concerned about it affecting the offense.
Talk to us about Jalen Lane. We've heard a lot of good things about him. You know, I've seen him obviously play at Virginia Tech, but as a guy that loves the Hokies, what are they getting in him?
Yeah, I mean, covering the Hokies, he was the most exciting piece for the team this into all season long. Special teams, a stud early in the season with a punt return for a touchdown. Offensively, they struggled to get him the ball because Kyron Drones was inaccurate at times, and the pass rush for opposing teams was getting to his face. So they said, all right, we're just going to start feeding to him with screen passes, end arounds, and that's how he kind of racked up quite a few number of yardage throughout the entire season. It was just force feed him the ball because that's our explosive player. That's our playmaker. And so this is a guy that had a really interesting journey throughout his college career, and he's going to be working with the best quarterback he's ever had. It's not even close. And that's going to unleash Jalen Lane because he has shown throughout his stops in college, he's a yak guy, yards after catch. All right. Yak guys, when they get to the NFL, those guys take off because it's easy to get them the ball with an accurate quarterback. And so I am so excited for for me, Jalen Lane's punt returner number one, day one, lock that in. And I think he really could get up to wide receiver 4 this season. And a wide receiver 4 on a team that I think is going to use 4, 5, 6 receivers a game. They're really going to have to spread it out.
Yeah, this feels like the first time in a long time that who they keep at wide receiver deep down the depth chart is actually going to matter. Because we have these conversations every single year about who's wide receiver 6, who's wide receiver 7 potentially, but it does feel like whoever they keep is going to get good action this year.
Yeah, I mean, Ja'Cory Brooks is a name that our intern in Richmond has been hyping up, watching his highlights in college. He was thrown to by an NFL quarterback who was just drafted, right? So that's certainly something to keep an eye on. I said last year, I just believe in Adam Peters, the legend of Adam Peters, to find somebody, one of these undrafted free agents that becomes a player, becomes somebody that you can count on, late in the season to make a play, to step up. And last year I was like, maybe that's, Marcus Rosemary, Jack Saint or something like that. Like, I just really believe that Adam Peters is going to find somebody.
Adam Epstein, our guest here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day, sitting in for Kevin. You can find him on Twitter at AWOD Radio. How do you feel about the defense after the first week of mandatory minicamp?
I'm excited for the defense, but I don't think that the defense is finished. I think that's my final take on the defense is that there might be another corner that gets brought in. There will be another edge rusher, and I'm so confident about that. Another man's trash is going to be our treasure. Somebody's going to get cut. Jair Alexander gets cut. All of a sudden, everybody in Washington wants people to, us to reach out to him, and that's just a cornerback. Wait till a legit edge rusher who's had a 10-plus sack season gets cut right around training camp. That's where Washington will swoop in on. I don't think it's going to be a Trey Hendrickson or a Von Miller. It's going to be more of an undercover name that fans maybe don't recognize, but there will be another edge rusher, and that will make me feel a lot better about the defensive side of the ball. But I'm going to say on my show today that the most important commander not named Jaden Daniels is Frankie Louvu. I'm expecting Frankie Louvu to be the leader on defense, to compete with Bobby Wagner for most tackles, to compete for most sacks, as I believe he had 8.5 last year, to compete to have most forced fumbles on the team, maybe even have an interception. I think you're going to see an all-pro year from Frankie Louvu because if he's able to build off what he did last year, this is a Pro Bowl at his position, absolutely, in my mind.
Is there a guy at defensive end if it's not a Von Miller or a Trey Hendrickson? Because I am starting to be a little out on Trey Hendrickson. I just don't think that deal is going to happen no matter what Adam Peters throws at him because Cincinnati likes playing hardball. But is there a guy that's still out there looming that you have your eye on?
I mean, I felt like I brought up Jadeveon Clowney's name 3 weeks ago, and there was a little momentum there, and that's died down. That's the guy that I would still say. But, yeah, I just think there will be an edge rusher that we're not even talking about, that you don't even assume, you don't even think will end up getting cut, but he will because there's training camp casualties every single year. I mean, last year, I thought Noah Brown was like a really good receiver for a Texans team that was rising with C.J. Stroud, and then they cut him. I was like, well, okay, whoa. Yeah, we'll take him. So you never know.
What do you think is in store for Brian Robinson in 2025?
I really hope it's going to be a great season. We're having a lot of fun with his quote yesterday. I'm hell when I'm well. I want to slap that on a T-shirt and sell it with him stiff-arming someone to the dirt. Bulletproof B-Rob is one of my favorite players on the team, but I'm starting to lose faith on him being part of this team for the foreseeable future. This is got to be 1,000-yard year for him, and I just don't think that's going to happen because Eckler will get touches, because Debo will get touches. I hope the offensive line is improved and they'll create more holes and he can hit more home run balls. That's been the biggest issue. But look, this is it for Brian Robinson. I thought he was very intelligent and smart when he talked to the media yesterday. He knows he's got to prove that he belongs here, and part of that is availability. He has got to stay healthy. He's got to be on the field for 17 games, and if he does that, I think he can be 1,000-yard rusher, and then Washington will probably decide to keep him.
I will say that if I'm hell if I'm well is one of the best quotes that I think has come out of Ashburn positively in a long, long time.
It's a good one. Then Dan Quinn also said, I want my players to fail successfully. And that, I mean, I was pondering that one for an hour.
that feels like he watching Les Brown or Eric Thomas, where he got one of those ones from. Awad, before I get you out of here, earlier this week, you announced your Football Fest. Number 3, what can fans expect? What do we need to know about the Football Fest?
Absolutely. I want to formally invite all of the listeners to the Kevin Sheehan Show, all of the D-Day members of the Denton Day Army, all of Max's friends, the producer of this show, all of our friends at the Team 980 and 106.7 The Fan. So AWOD's Football Festival 3, prime time in Richmond, Virginia at River City Roll. This is the only combination you're going to find of live music, a DJ set, food, pizza, drinks, football on TV. And so it's a music sports combination festival. And at the end, I'll take the stage and do a full football season preview show. Last year, we had Fred Smoot in the building along with Grant Polson and Danny Rouillet. So as we get closer to the August 16th date, we will start to announce some of the special guests for this year.
Do you guys have shirts? I'm a big shirt guy. If there's a shirt for me, I'll be there.
Oh, yeah. Last year we had a T-shirt option and a long sleeve option. I might even add like a bucket hat this year. We are adding more swag every year, Denton.
Oh, I'm silly for a good long sleeve shirt. That's one of those little known facts about me. I love a good long sleeve shirt. I'm looking forward to it, my friend. Appreciate you making some time for us.
Absolutely, man. Keep kicking ass.
That is Adam Epstein, AWOD Radio. You hear him on 106.7 The Fan from 9 to noon every Saturday. He is on 910 The Fan in Richmond from noon to 3 every single day. I'm not kidding when I say that the I'm hell when I'm well quote that Brian Robinson dropped is one of the best quotes that's come out of Ashburn in a long, long time. It's almost up there with Bruce Allen's "The culture is damn good," but like hopefully for very different reasons. Like I'm hoping in 2 years we're not looking back and I'm hell when I'm well in the same light as the Bruce Allen "The culture is damn good." Hopefully. But let me tell you this, Max. If Brian Robinson breaks one off week 1, I'm hell when I'm well is going to be trending in this city.
To clarify, you said you would talk about, if you guys are eliminated today by what happens at 4 o'clock, is Sam Howell in consideration?
Yeah.
We can be eliminated.
Yeah, get Ron. I feel like I need to expense the fact that I feel like I need to pay the listeners that we just put Ron Rivera on here.
Sorry, it took me a second to find it, but we can be eliminated. One of the all times.
That is one of the all times. I just please, just Brian Robinson's "I'm hell when I'm well." It cannot be in the same light as those two.
We can be eliminated.
Oh my God, it was terrible. Gosh dang it, Ron. You soured the mood.
I apologize.
You soured the mood.
I do that. I'm a vibe killer at heart.
Vibe killer. One thing I do want to point out, I'm going to give a little bit of minicamp stuff coming up at the end of this hour. We're going to get into Chris Sims's quarterback list coming up shortly. I want to take your calls on Chris Sims's quarterback list at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. I'm going to jump on the train, although I will say I was already kind of on the train. Ja'Cory Crooksy Merritt looks the part. I was watching them do some drills on Tuesday, and it's just drills. There are no pads. I'm not saying the guy is going to be 1,000-yard rusher. I do think he solidifies a roster spot, and I do think he's going to get a good amount of carries. That dude got bend. He got vision, and I can't wait to see what he looks like in pads, to see how he stacks up against some of the other guys, and to see what it's like when he actually gets hit. The reason he was drafted as deep into the draft as he was is theoretically not his fault. It is the fault of a broken system in college football. Stop me if you've heard that one before. A lot of issues in the world of college football, a world I deeply love, but he was not able to play last year due to a eligibility question, which I think had to do with money and agents, which in 2025 is hilarious because NIL is effective. And in 2026, dudes are going to be getting paid literally by the school, but he wasn't allowed to play last year. I think he is going to be a guy that ends up being a little bit of a steal, and he could be a really good player on this roster. It's early. It's early. He hasn't even put on pads yet, but I watched him do some drills. I was standing right by the running backs as they were doing certain drills on Tuesday, and he absolutely, it was very clear. Brian Robinson was running back one. Like, he looked like running back one. And like, if you see Brian Robinson, and this is one of the things that is so frustrating about the lack of production, if you see him, he looks like everything that you want in a running back. Strong, 6'2", good running form. It's the vision that has sometimes been a little bit of an issue, but Crooksy Merritt looks like the part. It was him, Eckler, and B-Rob is the ones that stood out doing the running back drills. More standouts coming up in about 30 minutes here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. But when we get back, Chris Sims released his full rankings of quarterbacks in the offseason. Where did Jaden Daniels fall? And I want your calls on where he fell coming up when we get back at 301-230-0980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
This is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. Kevin under the weather. He will be back, hopefully, on Monday. We appreciate you listening. You can watch us as well. Subscribe if you have not to the Team 980's YouTube channel. You see Kevin Sheehan daily, 10 to 1. You see Craig Hoffman, 4 to 7. You see some Denton's office sprinkled in there as well. It's a fun time over at the Team 980's YouTube page. Ben Standig will be with us at the top of the hour, as he is every Monday and Friday. That'll be at noon. I'm going to give you some stuff that I took away from minicamp in about 20 minutes here on the show. I was out there on Tuesday. It was good to be out there, see some football live and in living color. But Chris Sims released the top 10 of his quarterback rankings list yesterday. And he gave his full explanation today on his show. I'm going to give you my explanation. I mean, his explanation is great, but we just want to know where Jaden Daniels is ranked, right? Because this has been a conversation this entire offseason. Where does Jaden Daniels fall among the upper echelon of quarterbacks? And Pro Football Focus ranked him 6th a couple of weeks ago behind one Jalen Hurts. Chris Sims did not make that mistake. It is a fatal mistake, but Chris Sims is a smart human being, and he understands the game of quarterback just a little bit better than maybe some analytic numbers. Chris Sims has Jaden Daniels as the 5th best quarterback in the NFL ahead of the 2025 season. And I want you guys to slam the phone lines at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980, if that is the perfect ranking for one Jaden Daniels. But he ranked him 5th ahead of Jalen Hurts, behind what he is described as the core 4. Burrow, Jackson, Allen, Mahomes. Not in that ranking. In fact, it was actually Jackson 1, Josh Allen 2, Joe Burrow 3, Patrick Mahomes 4, and then Jaden Daniels at number 5. This is where Jaden Daniels belongs. Now, he separated the 4. He called them the core 4, and what he called the 5 through 7, which did not have Jalen Hurts, by the way. Jalen Hurts was 10 on this list. He called 5 through 7, which is Jaden Daniels, Matthew Stafford, and C.J. Stroud, as the surgicality. I don't quite know what that means. I don't know if that's supposed to mean something.
Surgical precision would be my guess.
I don't know why he wouldn't just call it surgical precision, but whatever. I'm not here to bash headlines. He ranked Jaden Daniels 5th, so he's top of surgicality. He is the one that is knocking on the door of the core 4 that currently occupy really the AFC, but the NFL as a whole. This is where I thought he should be. This is where every one of us thought that he was at the end of last season. I've said this before this offseason. I will say it again. Jaden Daniels is significantly better than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts just has an organization that is a few steps ahead of where Washington is right now. He has elite wide receivers. He has an elite running back. He has an elite offensive line. He has a really good tight end. Washington does not have that at the moment, not to mention that Jalen Hurts also has an elite defense that got a Super Bowl without blitzing. It is still to this day one of the crazier statistics that you're going to come across in the Super Bowl. They literally didn't blitz against Patrick Mahomes, still got to him, still were able to bring him down, still pressure him, and that's how they won a Super Bowl. Jaden does not have that, but if you isolate it in just the quarterback play, Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback than one Jalen Hurts, and Chris Sims has that by having Jalen Hurts at 10 in his own little category. He made this own little category that says the truth hurts. But I'm going to pull up the snippet that he wrote about Jaden Daniels, because it is a little, having Jaden Daniels as high as he is at the moment is really impressive. This guy is a rookie quarterback going into year number 2. It's a balance of impressive, but also maybe a little bit crazy if you're not a fan of the team here, because how often do we see quarterbacks take a big step back in year number 2? Most people will point to C.J. Stroud. That I don't think is a good comparison, because you can point to very obvious reasons as to why C.J. Stroud took a step back in year number 2. I think a much better observation would be Baker Mayfield, because Baker was really, really good. He was a bat out of hell his rookie season when he finally got in. He didn't start the season, but when he finally got in to being the quarterback in Cleveland, he was sensational his rookie year, and then in year number 2, it was a bit of a different story. Now, maybe you're going to point and say, well, Denton, he played in Cleveland, and they are at the gutter in the NFL. Accurate. That's a very fair point to make. But I think with Jaden, that really separates him from a lot of the other rookie quarterbacks is that it felt like he elevated everything in his rookie season. where at least you look at Houston. I mean, Houston was they had a rookie head coach. They had a really good defense in C.J. Stroud's rookie year, but they also had a lot of really good weapons. And they had at the time an all-pro left tackle in Laramie Tunsil, who is now, of course, playing here and is going to be the starting left tackle come week number 1. But you could look at that Houston roster and say, well, this is a pretty decent roster. Expectations weren't quite what Houston was able to accomplish. But I would say what Jaden did with Washington in 2024 was more impressive than what CJ Stroud did with Houston in 2023, just based off of the roster around him. We didn't really know what Terry was going to be with a good quarterback. We had an idea, and a lot of us were vindicated and validated by the performance that Terry had in 2024. Hashtag sign that man. But we didn't exactly know what he was going to be when playing with a good quarterback. And we saw last year, really, really good. I think the way that Jaden elevated the team in 2024, while hopefully he does not need to do that in 2025, but it does showcase that it's not like he had the chips stacked heavily in his favor. He forced them to be heavily in his favor. And some of the things that he was really successful with are things that I feel like naturally are just going to evolve and elevate throughout the course of a career. It's very different, obviously, very different than what happened with Robert here in 2012, because Robert kind of ran what we would call a little bit of a gimmick offense. He was really good with his legs, wasn't the greatest passer when it came to accuracy or in just natural dropbacks, but you had this mobility threat with him that had to keep defenses honest, and it had to keep defenses playing a certain way. The thing with Jaden is he has that and he has the accuracy, and he already has the accuracy. So in year number 2, especially keeping all of the coaches and the coaching staff that came in year number 1, keeping them for year number 2, understanding that in year number 3, you're not going to have all of those guys. I mean, you're going to be hoping to keep just one of all of those guys between Davida Pritchard, Blau, Cliff Kingsbury, all the dudes that were interviewing or being asked to interview for other spots this offseason. They're not going to be around in 2026, but you have them in 2025. So seeing how Jaden elevates, I don't think it's out of the realm of expectations to think that Jaden Daniels is going to make the core 4 a core 5 in 2026 when we're having these conversations. It's completely fair to think that he is going to be in MVP conversations. I've said this on this show before, Max, and I told you this. This is the reason I don't like Karl Anthony Towns. It's not his fault, but it's just the reason I don't like Karl Anthony Towns is that there are people that claimed that he was going to be a future MVP before he played. There are people that are making those claims about Jaden Daniels now. The difference is that they have seen Jaden Daniels play. They've seen him play. He elevated what was a pretty bad roster. I don't feel like that's out of pocket, me saying that. His wide receiver 2 was De'Ami Brown, for God's sakes. It was a bad roster last year, and he elevated and took them to the NFC Championship game. What is he going to do with a better roster? I think it's fair to think that he's going to be much better than what he was last year. 4,000 yards and knocking on the door 35 touchdowns seems very much in the possibility of reality of what he could end up being, not to mention the rushing yards that he is going to accumulate as well, which is one of the major reasons why you see guys like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen is number 1 and 2 on this list. The thing I love about Chris Sims's list is that it is more than just the quarterback play. You take into consideration the passing, the numbers, he's watching film, but you also take in that mobility threat and utilize that in these rankings as well, which is why Lamar is 1 and Josh Allen is 2. That's elements to their game that they really utilize, particularly in Baltimore. Lamar's a hell of a passer, but he is also this threat with his legs that not many other guys are in the NFL. Jaden Daniels is one of the few that could be in that conversation, assuming that what we saw in 2024 is amplified in 2025. And that is my expectation, that it is going to be amplified. All of the good, all of the great is going to be even better in 2025. And then we'll be having these conversations deep into the month of November and December, constantly looking at leaderboards or odds boards about what the numbers are going to say for Jaden Daniels to potentially win MVP of this league. I mean, hell, we were doing that last year. We were into the month of November thinking to ourselves, now it was pie in the sky, but you were thinking to yourself, is he going to win Rookie of the Year and MVP? Is he going to be able to do the what I would call the dirty double? It feels like it would be impossible, but he was at least in that conversation. So Jaden Daniels is ranked number 5 on this list. I mentioned Stafford at 6, CJ Stroud at 7, Justin Herbert 8, Baker Mayfield at 9, and then Jalen Hurts at number 10. So the only two NFC East quarterbacks in that list. That's Jaden and obviously Jalen Hurts. I do think Baker Mayfield being ranked 9 is very impressive. I don't think many people are going to rank Baker Mayfield above one Jalen Hurts. I don't disagree with that. He did get kind of funny. Like, so Chris Sims will name like portions of this list that I think are funny. Like, that's why we were talking about the surgicality with 5 through 7. I mean, the pocket rockets, which, I mean, pause, but pocket rockets with Justin Herbert and Baker Mayfield for 8 and 9. Jalen Hurts is in his own category of the truth hurts. I don't know if that's him talking to Philadelphia fans or everybody else, because I'm sure Philadelphia fans think he should be significantly higher on this list than number 10. But the next like subsection is scheme dream, which is your Brock Purdy's, your Aaron Rodgers with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Jared Goff with the Detroit Lions. You're diving deep into this list before you get to see one Dak Prescott. Like, it's really deep into the list. He has Dak in this conversation with Tua and Trevor Lawrence. Like, this might be it. This might be the end of him playing quarterback in the NFL, which is not a great place to be in if you are 1, Dak Prescott, or 2, the Dallas Cowboys, after you signed Dak Prescott to a $240 million contract last offseason. So Jaden ranks number 5. Is that a good ranking? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. We will take some of your calls on Chris Sims's quarterback ranking list, plus a couple of observations I noticed from Minicamp in my one day out there in Ashburn. Ben Standing joins at 12. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
All right, last night, the Edmonton Oilers pull off a comeback win in overtime after the Panthers come back to tie it in the final minute. Edmonton was down 3-0 at the beginning of the game. They become one of 7 teams in NHL history to overcome a 3-goal deficit in the Stanley Cup final to win. The last to do it was Carolina over Edmonton in 2006. This Leon Draisaitl's 4th overtime goal of the playoffs. The Oilers win 5-4. Miami-Dade police have issued an arrest warrant for Antonio Brown on attempted murder charges after he was seen on video fighting with multiple people following a boxing event last month. At the end of the video, gunshots can be heard. According to witnesses, Brown fired the shots after the altercation had ended. AB alleges he was jumped for his jewelry. The U.S. Open is getting underway, or continues to get underway. JJ Spawn sits atop of the leaderboard at 4 under. Thriston Lawrence, my apologies, sits at 3 under in second. And Sam Burns and Siwoo Kim sit at 2 under, tied for third. The Nats, they get swept by the New York Mets by a score of 5-4. The Nats will continue to take on the Marlins today at 6:45. Nats on deck at 6:15 with Charlie and Dave. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream, turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports, and that is what's trending.
Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Ben standing in 20 minutes here on the program. We're taking your phone calls, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Chris Sims ranked Jaden Daniels as the 5th best quarterback heading into 2025. We have a poll question up on our Twitter page at the Team 980 of the 4 quarterbacks ahead of him. Who is Jaden Daniels most likely to jump with a great season in 2026? So go to our Twitter page at the Team 980. I retweeted it at the Denton Day, and let me know. Vote on that poll question. Let's go out to the phones. Our guy Joe is in Springfield. Joe, what's going on? What do you make of these rankings? Who do you think Jaden Daniels can jump in 2025?
Hey, Denton, how you doing?
I'm good, man.
You know, first off, the core 4, as Chris Sims has put out there, is a tough list. I mean, if you look at Joe Burrow, for example, I mean, I can see Jaden possibly passing him, but then you remember last year the Bengals were 9-8 because of Joe Burrow in that offense. I mean, how many games did they lose at the end because it was either on the final play or the defense wasn't that good enough? I mean, it's a tough call, but maybe he passes Joe Burrow. But I mean, I like where Jaden Daniels is ranked at the moment. I mean, Jalen Hurts, yes, he's talented, but is Jaden Daniels higher than Jalen Hurts? Absolutely. So Chris Sims got it right, but I'm going to say possibly Joe Burrow. I can't see Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Patrick Mahomes having a slump. But, I mean, Lamar Jackson for sure then is on the hot seat this year. I mean, I'm not saying the playoff loss against Buffalo is on him, but his playoff record is not as good as is in the regular season. I mean, although I will say then that the loss against Buffalo, the fumble by Mark Andrews was on Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews dropping that 2-point conversion was on Mark Andrews. That's not Lamar Jackson. If those 2 plays don't happen, the Ravens are possibly beating the Chiefs in the AFC Championship and possibly representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. So you never know. But I like where Jaden Daniels is ranked going in this second season, and who knows? I mean, he could definitely make at least the top 4 next year if he continues the way he does. So take care, Ben.
Joe, appreciate it. I am expecting Jaden Daniels to be in the top 4, and while this is it's very tough of the 4 to decide who he's going to jump. It's actually not that tough to me, Max. I have to be honest. I thought about this for 2 seconds. I came to my answer in about 2 seconds.
As did I. I'm interested to hear.
It's Patrick Mahomes.
Whoa, that's not my answer.
It would be Patrick Mahomes. If you take away like the accolades, if you're just watching it on good season to good season, the answer would be Patrick Mahomes. There is this level of boredom that comes with watching Patrick Mahomes now, and I realize that. But I'm going to be very, very intrigued about how this season goes. Andy Reid is only going to be around for so much longer, which is going to put a lot of pressure on Patrick Mahomes. But I don't think it's unfair to argue that Jaden Daniels, especially late in the season, played just as well, if not better, than one Patrick Mahomes in 2024. Now, they didn't have a lot of wide receivers, certainly. Like, Terry is better than just about everybody that was on that Chiefs roster. I would say even better than Kelsey in 2024. I mean, Kelsey's on the way out. He's probably going to get married to Taylor Swift in like the next calendar year, something like that. Did you see his new haircut, by the way?
I did.
Yeah, that's different for Travis Kelsey. Not bad, but different.
He jumped to a different side of the tracks.
Somebody said he looked like Will Ospreay. And I don't know if you know who Will Ospreay is, but I found that hilarious. It was a great reference.
Pretty good.
But Patrick Mahomes would be the one. The fact that Mahomes is 4 on this list is actually stunning. But it does validate some of the things that we thought after watching him last year. Now, maybe it's because, as I eloquently put it last year, it does feel like this guy plays with his food a little bit in the regular season. And these are regular season rankings. Sims isn't going into the postseason stuff. That's why Lamar is number 1. But these are regular season rankings. And at times, like, this was the worst regular season that we have seen from Patrick Mahomes ever. He wasn't in MVP conversations. He was turning the football over more than he usually does. This was the worst regular season that we've seen from him. Is he still the best of a generation? Absolutely. Is he still the best in conversations for the best of all time? Absolutely. I think he's quarterback 3 right now on the all-time rankings behind Brady and Montana. But in 2024, he wasn't as good as we are accustomed to him being. And if Jaden Daniels is going to be better than what he was in 2004, where it was an argument that he was playing just as good, if not better than Patrick Mahomes, I don't see why it's outside of the realm of possibility that he jumps Patrick Mahomes in 2025. My expectation is that Burrow is going to go absolutely nuclear in 2025. He's my MVP pick for 2025 for guys not named Jaden Daniels. I'm placing multiple MVP bets, baby. You should too. But he's going to be my MVP pick for guys not named Jaden Daniels. I expect more of the same from a Josh Allen. I mean, he just got married. You know, he got a ball out for his boo thing. And Lamar Jackson, I don't know what I'm going to expect from Patrick Mahomes in 2025. This might be the year where the Chiefs look a lot more human than they have in years past. So I don't think it's crazy to say that Jayden Daniels could be jumping him. Now, Mahomes is still going to be 5. Like, he's not falling to like 9. He's not falling to 7. He's still going to be 5 on this list. But I do think that Jayden Daniels kind of shimmies his way in to the core 4 and at least early return on the poll, which is still very much in its infancy. But Mahomes is second behind one Joe Burrow.
And you know who has, the first vote for Lamar just came in, but Lamar was sitting at 0.
He's sitting at 0. Lamar was the best quarterback last year.
He was.
Allen won the MVP, but if you watch Lamar Jackson, you were watching a master at work play quarterback. And at times you saw that with Jayden Daniels, but Lamar did it for about 16 of the 17 weeks. Yeah. I mean, he was absolutely on one every single time that he stepped up on the field. Taking your calls on this topic, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Which quarterback that's ranked top 4 in Chris Sims's list of offseason quarterbacks do you think Jayden Daniels, who is ranked number 5, is most likely to jump? Let's go to Gary in Upper Marlboro. Gary, what's going on?
Good morning, gentlemen. I just got to start off right from the drop here. I think you're crazy when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. Okay? I think you're absolutely crazy. He is the greatest quarterback, okay, in my opinion, for what he's done for the start of his career. He's the greatest quarterback ever, okay? And for you to think that Jayden Daniels after one season is going to be better than Patrick Mahomes, you know, being totally objective here, you're crazy. Okay, that's my thing.
But do you not think that he played as well as he did last year? Like, if you take it, this isn't based on like Super Bowls and accolades. This is based off of quarterback play from a year-to-year basis.
Yeah, from a year-to-year basis. But my question is, if you put Jayden Daniels on Kansas City last year, he has a worse season than Patrick Mahomes. Okay, that's my point. I don't agree with that. You got to look at the totality of everything. The reason why he took a step back last year is because he didn't have the talent around him that he usually has. Okay, it wasn't because.
Wait, hold on, Gary. Let me stop you real quick. How much do you think Washington was better roster-wise than Kansas City was? Because even if they were better, it was very nominal. It wasn't this massive gap.
I don't think. Listen, I think Washington, and I've said this, being totally objective, they were the beneficiary of having a very weak schedule. Okay, and that's, you got to look at the whole thing. They had one of the weakest schedules in all of football last year, and they still won games by the skin of their teeth. So you got to look at it totally objective. I think Kansas City, okay, if you give Kansas City Washington's schedule, they would have been 12-5. They would have been still the same team that they were. They would have been more dominant. All right. I think you got to look at the whole thing. But as far as the quarterbacks are concerned, I don't think that Patrick Mahomes is the guy that he's going to jump. In fact, I don't think he's going to jump any of those guys, but there's no problem with that. Okay, that's not saying any slight towards Jayden. The league is going to have more of a script on Jayden. Okay, people are going to know what to expect more from him. And he may take a step back because he has a more difficult schedule. But he still may be the number 5 quarterback next year. But that's not a slight to Jayden. I mean, look at C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud took a step back last year. All right. He's still a good quarterback, but he didn't play as well in his second year as he did his first year. That's because people have more of a book on him. And the other thing is Jayden didn't have a lot of injuries around him. I mean, they were a pretty healthy team. If he loses Terry McLaurin for 3 or 4 games, then what is that going to do? That doesn't mean he's a diminished quarterback. It just means that his cast of characters.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Gary. I'm not going to start sitting here and predicting injuries. I understand the point you were trying to make, but here's the thing. You can have the book on Jayden Daniels, but the reason why I'm confident on this book being got on Jayden Daniels is that he did everything well. His accuracy was well. He read the plays well. He could read defenses well. Like, he did all those things at a very high level. Certainly there will be an adjustment period for defensive coordinators and defensive coaches, and they'll try and throw a bunch of creative stuff at him. There's certainly stuff that he can do better in 2025. But I think if you look at some of the other guys that you have thrown into these conversations, there was massive differences. There were massive things. Certain teams were doing certain things very early on that were really helping their young quarterbacks. And that's why you saw a massive difference. Robert is a great example of that. To an extent, Baker Mayfield's a great example of that. CJ Stroud last year, the offensive line was an absolute disaster, like a total disaster. But I also think that just generally speaking, that Jaden is better than CJ Stroud. I think he is more accurate. I think he has better vision. I think he has significantly better legs, although CJ Stroud did start to use mobility towards the end of last year, basically because he didn't have a choice, because he was getting run up on. It felt like every single snap from that right side. The left side looked pretty good. That's why the left side's here. But so I don't think it's I'm not expecting Jaden to take a step back. I think all of the things that he did well are very easy to build off of. And I think it was more about him just doing things well. Because again, this roster last year was not a great roster. And he still elevated. The schedule was what the schedule is. And if you want to point to they were winning games by the skin of their teeth, that's accurate, but every one of the NFL does. Kansas City was doing that too last year. So you can't point to Washington saying they were winning games by the skin of their teeth and say, well, Kansas City, they were just crushing everybody, because they were doing the exact opposite. That's why we were making jokes on social media about them having deals with the devil, the way that they were double doinking their way or blocked field goaling their way into wins that were just having you sit there and scratch your head. I mean, they're beating Denver, who wasn't all that spectacular, by 2 points because they're blocking field goals, right? They're beating Tampa Bay they're going to overtime with Tampa Bay. Washington beat Tampa Bay. So, like, if you want to point to the schedule, fine. That's it's fair, I guess, but Washington beat who was in front of them. That's all you can ask them to do in a football season, and I expect them to do the same in 2025. I'm excited about the matchup with Jaden and Patrick Mahomes. I want to see that. I want to see Jaden take on these big-time quarterbacks. I think that makes it all the more entertaining to see what he has against these big-time quarterbacks. But I think what Mahomes did in 2024 was not what we are accustomed to him doing. He has set the bar at a certain level with his own greatness, which is like, if you want to call him the best quarterback in the NFL, you're fully entitled to do that. I would say 3. But if you want to call him the best quarterback that has ever played football, fine, which Gary did. But 2024 was one of his worst seasons ever. And in Jaden, in his first year, he played just as well. Like, I don't even know if that's an opinion at this point. It almost feels like a cold, hard fact. He played just as well as Mahomes did. And in 2025, if he elevates his game, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that in this list he jumps Mahomes. Mahomes will always have the accolades until Jaden catches up, which, fingers crossed, toes crossed. God willing, he does. So you'll never be able to judge him based off of that. But on a season-by-season output, this is why we talk about Jaden and Jalen. This is why I was so upset with PFF ranking Jalen Hurts above Jaden Daniels. As my guy Joel pointed out on social media, he tweeted me at the Denton Day. Jaden had a better PFF number than Jalen Hurts, which if PFF is ranking based off of their numbers, it didn't make sense that they would then have Jalen Hurts over a Jaden Daniels unless you're just counting the accolades. But the accolades took place because Philadelphia had a barn burner of a defense, one of the great defenses that we have seen in the NFL in a long, long time, by the way. I don't think they're quite like Legion of Boom good. The 2012 defense for a guy in my age that's just turned 30 years old is the best defense that I have ever seen with my eyes play football. I wasn't quite old enough for the 2000 Ravens and 02 Buccaneers, and I was not born yet for the 85 Bears, but they're all in those conversations. That 2012 Seahawks team was unbelievable. This Philadelphia Eagles team was a good defense, not an all-timer kind of a defense, but you saw what they did, and they were able to elevate Jalen Hurts. Between that and the tush push, he looked a lot better than he was. So I think Jaden jumping Patrick Mahomes is not the craziest thing in the world. I do think a lot of people will say that Joe Burrow is going to be the guy that's very, very high on this list. And in fact, it's between Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes right now. A lot of respect, Max, to Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Can't blame the people. A lot of respect to those two guys. All right, when we get back here, Ben Standing is going to join us. We will get the latest on Noah Brown and some of his observations from minicamp. I have some more to get to, including the guy that impressed me the most on defense. That will come in our final hour. But Ben Standing joins us next. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day on the Team 980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Some minicamp observations coming up in 20 minutes, but we head out to the phones now. Welcome in our guy, Ben Standig of The Athletic, insider here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. You can find him on Twitter at Ben Standig. Ben, it was great to see you on Tuesday. Hope you're doing well. Walk me through what happened with Noah Brown this week. I was only out there on Tuesday. I didn't see what happened when he went down. From your vantage point, what did you see?
Yeah, so he was running sort of this intermediate route. Marcus Mariota threw the ball his way. It was an accurate throw, but kind of a one where Noah Brown kind of went down to the ground to catch it. And this is all speculation as to what happened. So please understand that talking to the audience. But like he hits the ground, and we've all watched sports enough to know when something looks odd. Mm-hmm. And the landing, the conclusion of the play, it seems odd. Like something was like he just didn't land right. And this is of course a player who has a lengthy injury history, unfortunately. So maybe your mind goes a little bit to that automatically. But then he doesn't get up right away, and he's laying on the ground for a couple extra seconds. If the training staff comes out, he gets to his feet, gingerly walks over to the sideline. But then after a couple of minutes, they put him in a cart and bring him up to the building. Now, I probably this is a mistake that I made and others as well. Is like when you say somebody gets carted off the field, that has a certain connotation, and it may in this case as well. But the field, as you know, is below the building, so it's an uphill walk. Not like I'm not saying it's walking up Mount Kilimanjaro, but it's an uphill walk. So I think probably rather than having him do that, they brought him in the cart. But nonetheless, something looked odd. And then when he got to the building, I don't know what it was about. I don't know if it was about frustration or, in the car, in the ride, they hit a bump or I don't know what. But he let out kind of a pretty, loud scream or and again, I don't know if it's frustration or anger or pain. So put it all together and it was like, whoa, what's going on? What's the deal here? So we don't have, unfortunately, any real update. Dan Quinn yesterday said that Noah Brown would get an MRI, but he hadn't had one yet. Now we don't have to, Dan Quinn doesn't have to talk to us for 40 days. So, works out for them. I imagine if it's something serious, we'll hear about it, in the coming days. And if it's not something serious, we'll probably still get an update at some point. So yeah, unfortunately we may not have a great feel for this. Hopefully it's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. I think Noah Brown's a very key part of this offense. He gives them that sort of power forward size ability to box out receiver or box out defensive back on a third and short type of play. We know he can get down the field, make plays, draw pass interference penalties. So hopefully he's good to go. But yeah, it's definitely one of the lingering question marks out of minicamp.
When you say that he fell awkwardly, was it more like his knee kind of almost banged up against the ground, or like describe what awkward falling is, if you could?
Well, like I said, he went down to the ground in order to make the play. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just like, a guy hits the ground and there was maybe something about the way his body sort of contorted in the moment. And like I said, it was pretty, it's pretty quick. You can tell a guy gets, hits the ground and then immediately pops back up. We don't think about it twice, but it was obvious he was down there for an extra second. I don't know. It's almost like an instinctive thing, again, of just having watched these guys over and over and over the years, just athletes in general. I mean, and so, yeah, it wasn't like, and again, we're not watching this from a TV angle. There's no replays. You don't necessarily know that it's going to be something significant perhaps as you're watching it, but it just looked like an awkward fall and that he just wasn't going to get up gracefully. That something had happened. And then, as I said, it just looks worse just because of, the taking him in the cart and all that stuff. So, again, this is a guy who's been successful in his career, but unfortunately injuries have just constantly popped up. Last year's was maybe a bit fluky here where he gets his kidney injury in the Tennessee game and then knocks him out for the year. Glad that he's doing fine from that. But, he's had the usual assortment of NFL injuries over the years, and that's kind of kept him from being, a consistent presence for anybody in the league. And, hopefully that's not the case here.
Ben Standing with us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Is Deebo Samuel fat, Ben?
Give me the outside perspective. I look at him and I don't like. This is the first time we've seen. I've seen him in person, and he's definitely not like if Jaden Daniels is the definition of like a skinny frame, Deebo isn't that. But I guess I'm looking at my own gut and I don't look at Deebo and think, boy, the guy is fat.
I felt like I was insane on social media reading everyone call him fat. One of like Hogs Haven said that it was Deebo Lacy Sr. as if he had a clause in his contract where he couldn't weigh 255 pounds like Eddie Lacy did in Green Bay. I don't think he's fat at all. I've been stunned by people thinking that they look at him and say that guy's fat. I don't think he's that at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like when this first quote unquote controversy started and one of these like ridiculous aggregators who's just a complete moron tweets out, or he takes the video that somebody put of Deebo jogging on a play and acts like he's like being, lollygagging out there when it's not that at all. You're not going full tilt on every OTA or minicamp practice. It's much more about getting a feel for where everybody is on the field, the communication, what's supposed to happen. It's not some hardcore getting ready to play the Cowboys or something. So that part was stupid. But then when it got to the weight part, I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at here. I don't quite understand what is happening. Because to me, the type of player that Deebo Samuel is, he like I talked to somebody about Jalen Lane today on my podcast, and Jalen Lane's 4'3", guy. The body type kind of goes with that. He's not the biggest guy. You're getting him the ball in space and going from there. Deebo Samuel is a guy that you can line up in the backfield, right? And give him the ball from that perspective. Not like run between the tackles, but like he's got enough body to like he's going to deal out some punishment as well. His yards after the catch prowess is in part not just because he's running past guys, but he's running over guys and through tackles. So like I don't understand what do people think that type of guy is going to look like? So yeah, I've been confused. I've been wondering myself, am I just like so in the weeds here I don't even notice? Like what is going on? So yeah, I've been confused as well that this has been such a topic.
It's been if I had hair, I'd be pulling it out. I don't have hair, but if I did have hair, I would be pulling it out by reading some of the stuff that people are saying about him, literally based off of that one video. Outside of that, you've been around the team for the past couple of days. What has been the feel around Deebo Samuel and what he's been bringing so far to the offseason?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, since we've been out there, obviously Terry McLaurin has not been. And I think Deebo, even though he's the new guy, he's acting, I think he's in the role of, elder statesman, so to speak, a guy who's been around the league who can, help out, whether it's the Luke McCaffreys or Jalen Lanes or on the other side, putting in some extra work with Mike Sanders still after practice. It seems to me he's done, all the right things as best as I can tell. You can see some of the ways he can be used. He had one catch at one point during this whole process in the end zone. I forget which quarterback it was, but it was kind of like looking for somebody who threw a high ball over the middle in the end zone, and Deebo was the one that went up and caught it. I think there was another play this week that I thought, I don't know if it was the day you were out there or not, but that like if you were going to sort of quote unquote like critique him, it was one where he caught like an underneath pass, and Kane Madrano, the 6th round pick, was like the closest defender, and he just really, as soon as Deebo got it, like knocked the ball away from Deebo, went into the hands of one of the undrafted free agent defensive backs, and was a turnover, and everybody was kind of happy about that. Like that's the type of player, like, hey, you can't make that during the season. You got to secure the ball, and whatever. I mean, again, it's a rapid practice. So for the most part, he's looked pretty good. I haven't had any issue with what I've seen. But when you get to training camp, everything's got to be tightened up a bit. That's fine. But right now, it's just not that critical to act like it's a big deal. And also with him, the type of player he is, I said this on my podcast, this is a weird analogy, so bear with me, but like when Taylor Heineke was here, he was not a guy you would watch in practice and go, boy, this guy is amazing, because so much of what he does is like this instinctive stuff with the ball or after the snap or drawing a play up in the dirt to just figure out how do I manufacture something here. I kind of feel like Debo to a degree is sort of similar like that. The yards after the catch stuff only really works when you're trying to tackle the guy, right? And like there's no tackling happening right now. So I don't think we're really going to get a full sense of what he does, maybe until preseason games or the actual games, but maybe at least in camp when there's a little more formal, pads are out, things like that. So, I've been fine with Debo, and that's why, like I said, I was really kind of surprised at what this reaction was the other day.
Ben Standig with us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin at Ben Standig on Twitter, where you can find him. What about with Laramie Tunsil? Wasn't at OTAs, showed up for minicamp. What did you think of him?
Yeah, I mean, I doubt he is in his, week one peak condition at the moment. He's, getting back out there. And, again, offensive line or the defensive line, it's really hard to judge these guys at this time of year. No pads, you're really not doing much in terms of actual blocking and hitting and all that. So we'll see. But look, just watching him a little bit, seeing him walk off the field with some of the younger linemen and hearing him talk to them about, just hearing a couple conversations about his time in the league or how he works on a certain drill that they were doing. And so much of what is looked upon at this time of the year is that sort of that team bonding. And Dan Quinn talked yesterday about seeing the veterans talk to the young guys on their own about whatever, so again, something specific on the field, how they're prepping off the field, or just even as, one human to another, getting to know each other. And it looks like Tunsil to me kind of filled into that role and started doing so nicely. We'll get a much better feel, of course, when we get out to training camp. But, seeing Tunsil at left tackle with Brandon Coleman at left guard, if that's the way it plays out, this is like to go from that, or to go from, back a few years ago when you was like, Charles Leno was fun, but then you had like the Andrew Norwells out there. To go from like that to this is just, the potential here is just so much higher. It really goes to show where this thing can go. So, the offensive line will get a better feel come training camp, but Laramie Tunsil, so far so good. And, they're definitely counting on him for sure.
They seem to also love Connerly. And I watched him on Tuesday, and I was like, he was doing well in the drills. Now, drills are just drills, but everyone seems to really love the first round pick.
Yeah, when it comes to who these guys are as people, again, I never assume I know anybody for sure, but, this is 2 years in a row where they have drafted guys that, seem to be, the kind of kid, you want to bring home to your mom, so to speak, good, does the hard work, has talent, does things the right way, fits in, and he seems to be another guy like that. He's 21. Some guys are 21 and they seem a little more mature. He's 21. It feels like he's 21. There's a lot of kid in him when we're talking to him, and that's fine. I mean, it's what it's supposed to be. And, you can see the raw ability. I still think there's, potentially a world where Andrew Wiley, starts early just because he's been more established. And again, Connerly is super young, but by the same token, the upside there is notable, and he could be the guy out of right tackle when it all starts, and eventually he'll be out there. I don't see him playing guard or anything. So, I think, I don't want to say sky's the limit, but, it certainly looks like for a franchise that's had a lot of excellent tackles over the years, it's possible he is, the next in line in terms of a guy that they groom here from the start, the way they did with, Trent Williams and Chris Samuel and, Joe Jacoby, et cetera. So again, I don't want to put him in that category. He hasn't done anything yet, but that's the hope here. If he's able these first few years really become a presence at the right tackle, and then maybe he eventually moves to left, that would be such a great deal for this franchise. And, again, at this point, he's checked off the boxes, but now he's got to get to the next level when we get to later in the summer.
Ben Standig, our guest here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. You can find his podcast at Last Man Standing, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Denton sitting in for Kevin. Anybody stand out to you when you watch the defense this week?
On the defense, I think Trey Amos is overall, the question of his, what does he look the part? Again, for me, that's so much of what these sessions are about. And I definitely think he looks the part. We talked to Joe Witt Jr. earlier in the offseason, and he, discussed, they brought in guys up front like Javon Kinlaw and Dietrich Wise with the sole purpose of getting bigger and longer on defense. But he extended that to say this is also why we went for Trey Amos, to have a guy who's got some good size and length, not to mention speed and coverage ability. Because, look, Mikey Sanders still obviously did a really nice job last year on the outside, but he's also, on the smaller end. You could see that in some of those matchups late in the postseason against like A.J. Brown, and that's a tough one for a guy like that. Amos will not have size issues for the most part against receivers. And look, Marshawn Lattimore showed up this week. He seemed to be healthy. He seemed to be in a better place than he was last year when he admitted he was just playing through injuries. It's way too much and pressing and so on. But Trey Amos gives you a little bit of cover if Lattimore does have some issues. If Amos can, keep this going and show he's ready to go week one. But to have Lattimore and Amos on the outside with Sanders still in the slot, perhaps, again, to make the comparison of a previous roster. Just a year ago, the group was Benjamin St. Juste, Emmanuel Forbes, and Mike Davis were your outside corners. Again, Emmanuel Forbes was looking fine early in camp in his rookie year, so it's a good cautionary tale. But there's a lot to like about Amos, and I thought he did a pretty good job. And if you tell me he's the week one starter, that's not going to surprise me at all, based on the little bit we've seen here so far.
Did they ramp up Quan as the week went on? I know when I was there on Tuesday, he wasn't doing a ton of stuff.
Yeah, I think he was doing a little bit, but I don't know that he was necessarily flying around too much. He did, as he had a couple off-season shoulder surgeries, so I don't get the sense that he's like limited. But again, there's no real need to force anything if any guys are dealing with a little bit. And also, like with anything else, you want to see as many guys as you can. What Quan Martin can be, and Joe Witt thinks he can be, one of the better safeties in the league. So, they already see where the upside is. They want to get a feel for some of their other guys. Joe Witt's talked about getting Jeremy Reeves on the field more defensively. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't think they're forcing Quan, but, this is a very interesting year, I think, for him because, first of all, it feels like he's been here for way more than just 2 years. But secondly, the first year he's obviously stuck on a team that ends up being terrible. Last year he was playing, as we find out later, playing injured for a chunk of the year. And now, if he's healthy and ready to go, and he could be one of the leaders of that secondary for sure, that defense overall. And, where does this go for him? What can he really be? So I think it's a pretty interesting year for Quan Martin, and there's no reason to think he's not going to continue to have an upward trajectory.
Gut feel here, Ben, before we pivot to basketball. Are we celebrating a Terry McLaurin extension before July 4th?
Before July when?
Before July 4th.
I'll guess no. Could something happen, while you and I are talking? Sure. But I mean, if I had to guess, well, actually, I don't know. July 4th, what did it say? The 13th, 14th? I guess maybe that's, look, do I think he'll have a deal done before training camp? I mean, that would be my assumption. I get right now that there's some frustration on McLaurin's end. Hey, why do we even need to have too much of a discussion? Look what this guy has done, over the entire time he's been with this team. Now he finally gets a good quarterback, and he has, 13 touchdown catches. He had another few in the postseason. He's always played. He's a leader in the locker room, a leader in the community. What is not to like about McLaurin? Why are we even having this debate? And, it feels like, from what I can gather, the age conversation that he'll be 30 this year, and most of the top receivers in the league are under that. And, do you want to give a guy a 3-year extension, when he's going to be, past 30, and there's no like definitive answer when receivers drop off, but, over 30 starts to get a little bit worrisome perhaps for some, but, on the McLaurin side is going to agree to that, and they shouldn't necessarily. So, eventually I think something gets worked out, but, the age matter to me is the one that's really interesting, because if Washington just says, hey, look, we love the guy, but like we just can't pay the same as a much younger Brandon Ayuk or a younger DK Metcalf are getting, and he's his side will be like, well, he's more valuable than those guys. So what are we talking about? So unless that becomes a massive sticking point, I think they eventually get something done, whether that's July 4th or right before training camp, but something I would imagine gets done eventually.
NBA Finals tonight. Do the Pacers go up 3-1?
Well, I mean, you and I were texting about this earlier. Look, if the game could go either way, I just don't understand why people have been so stunned that the Pacers are playing well. People are acting like OKC was, this is a foregone conclusion. I understand that they won 68 regular season games, and that's wildly impressive from an all-time perspective. But this was a weird regular season. The Thunder and the Cavs were two teams that just dominated, despite having no real players who have, they didn't have a guy who you're looking at as one of the top, 30, 40 players of all time. They don't have guys who have been there, done that necessarily in this league in terms of the finals. So the idea that this the youngest team in the league was just going to come in and roll over a Pacers team that made the conference finals a year ago, that has a guy in Pascal Siakam, who was a key player for a Toronto team that won the title, who has a head coach in Rick Carlisle, who's not only one of the better coaches of all time, but he's won a title in this league, whereas OKC is essentially also going with a very young coach. I just did not understand why this was happening. So I'm not stunned at all that Indiana's winning. I picked Indiana to win in 6. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But, I've been really blown away that people have been so shocked at what is happening. So, yeah, I think Indiana can absolutely win tonight. They've got depth. They've got numerous guys that can score. I think for OKC, somebody else has to step up besides Shea, and not just in Chet Holmgren or Jalen Williams gets points in secondary offense or fast break. Somebody needs to really take control so Shea is not getting constantly pounded by defenders. He probably will regardless, but somebody else has to step up for them. Otherwise, I can absolutely see Indiana, especially in the fourth quarter. OKC has dominated the first 3 quarters.
Right.
Indiana is taking control in the end, and the end is especially in the NBA, that's what matters. So they need somebody in the fourth quarter who can really make plays on offense in particular, and not just rely on SGA to have to kind of do everything.
And the Chet thing is so fascinating, because if you just read box scores, you saw him have 20 in game 3, but 15 of those came in the first quarter, and he was relatively absent the rest of the game. You can't have that happening against a team like Indiana that is just about as deep as OKC is. I also picked him in 6, Ben. For the record, I got a very good number at the books, so I'm hoping that Indiana wins in 6. It's been fun, though. I think he maybe people aren't watching as much because there are no big markets, but at the very least, the games have been fun and entertaining.
Oh, yeah. I think this is a really interesting matchup. I mean, the other part of this is everybody's saying OKC, every single aspect you would give the plus to OKC. And maybe that's true to a degree, but the thing that people are overlooking is it's not that it's dominant. It's okay, maybe they're FCA is better than any player on Indiana. That's fine. The OKC's perimeter defense is ridiculously good, sure, but Indiana definitely has dudes. Nembhard has caused Brunson problems. He's causing some problems over here for some of their guards. They've got plenty of guys who can defend. The depth, OKC's depth is insane. Indiana's depth is nuts in this modern NBA. Denver had 4 guys playing. The Timberwolves' depth was inconsistent. Indiana's running out 9 dudes who were playing well every game, and they got guys that can score. Obviously, Halliburton is just an all-time clutch guy at this point. So yeah, it's OKC may end up winning this series, and either way, they are set up to be a essentially really dominant team for several years.
Right.
But yeah, it's not. Indiana has a lot going their way, and also their home crowd. That's a real thing. I don't even know if home advantage means much anymore, but they have one there. I think in Indianapolis.
I'll get you out of here with this. The next time you're at the facility is when? What's the next couple weeks look like for the Commanders?
Yeah, no, we're not there. I don't know the exact date yet, but it's somewhere around July 20th, give or take, is when they'll report. And then, then the fun begins, and we start watching training camp. And so, yeah, we've got a ways to go. We won't see or talk to any of these guys for a while.
All right, Ben, enjoy your break and enjoy Game 4 tonight.
I look forward to it, man. Always a pleasure, Denton. Thanks for the time.
That is Ben Standig joining us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. Always a good time to catch up with Ben. And now we get about 5 weeks of a break for the Commanders before they are then in pads. The next time we will see them, we'll probably get like a day or two of just shells, and then we will see them in pads and hitting, and you'll get to see just how fast a guy like Debo is and how a guy like Ja'Cory Crooksy-Merritt looks in pads and what Laramie Tunsil looks like in pads. I saw him in person this week, Max. He's a ginormous human being. He is just a massive, massive man. So I'm excited to see what he is going to look like. One real quick thing on the NBA. We will preview tonight's game to close the show, but one real quick thing on the NBA. My favorite thing to observe over the past couple of months has been the magnitude of people who have screamed both on television and social media about how much the regular season in the NBA sucks, and then use nothing but regular season statistics to prove why OKC is better than Indiana. It is the ultimate level of hypocrisy, and it's why I've been betting Indiana for the entirety of this series. Does that continue tonight? You'll find out in about 30 minutes. But coming up next, what Adam Schefter said about Terry McLaurin and his contract status. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Den Day. It's Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Just had a great conversation with Ben Standig. Of course, we talked about the Terry McLaurin contract extension. I asked Ben the question, does he think it's going to happen prior to July 4th? If Terry is not signed by July 4th, that will be the time where my panic meter starts to have movement. It's not going to skyrocket to the other side and be at a 10. It's not going to be that. But it'll at least have a little bit of movement. Because if I remember correctly, it was the end of June 3 years ago that it was rumored or that we heard the news, and then the contract was officially signed a few days, a week or so after that. But we started to hear the agreement at the end of June. So once we get to July 4th, and then at that point, you're about 2 weeks away from training camp, and we still haven't heard anything, then you might see a little bit of doom scrolling on Twitter. Then I'll start to have some feelings of, this is not going in the direction where I was hoping. My expectation as we sit here now is that Terry is going to be suited up, not for week 1, but for the preseason. Just ready to go in the preseason. We'll see him. He'll be there. He'll be active, and he will be all right. And then, of course, he will be ready for week 1. And then this offense is going to take off, and all of us are going to be happy. That's my expectation as we get closer and closer to the season. With that said, Adam Schefter was on Pat McAfee. I believe this was yesterday, and he was asked about the Terry McLaurin contract situation. This is what Adam Schefter said to Pat McAfee.
Feels like things have been kind of quiet about Terry McLaurin and him not being at minicamp. Like, is the sentiment around the team and him that something is going to get done, or is this something that could turn into more where there's a chance he's not a Commander?
Look, I think that there are various vantage points in any situation like this. There's the player side, there's the team side, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And I think the team feels like it's going to get something done with Terry McLaurin. I think Terry McLaurin clearly is frustrated with where talks are at, because not only did he not show up for the mandatory minicamp, but he hasn't participated in any of the team's offseason activities. He's been a no-show for that, certainly deserving of a new deal. And I believe that the two sides will find a way to figure it out at some point in time. They're just not there right now. And it's easy to rattle the sabers and no-show on June 12th and make a lot of noise. It's a different thing when camp's beginning or we're getting close to the preseason. If this is going on August 12th, then it becomes a major concern. Until then, I think we could just sit back and I think wait for the situation eventually, somehow, to resolve itself.
We assume that the new ownership will want to get Terry McLaurin back in the building, especially with the greatness that they had last year.
I should have cut it off earlier. Whoops.
All right. So I had the same reaction that you likely had as a listener. Something was not right there. Because Terry McLaurin,
we got him,
has been to activities.
Got him.
He wasn't at mandatory minicamp. That is correct. He was not at a majority of OTAs. That is correct. He did go one day, then he left. But we have seen him. If you do not believe me, you can go to the Commanders' Instagram page. You can go to their Twitter page. I would tell you Instagram because I feel like it would be easier to find on there. But you can go to their social media pages and you will see them posting about Terry McLaurin catching passes from Jaden Daniels. And the caption is something along the lines of good to be back or back in action or something similar to that. So Terry has been there. I believe if my memory is correct, he's wearing a bucket hat as he's catching a pass. I don't know. I deleted Instagram from my phone, but I believe that's what the picture they posted was. So he has been there. Now, does that mean anything in the context of what Adam Schefter said? Not really. He didn't give us a lot of new information. I'm just kind of yanking his chain a little bit because Terry has been around the team and he did participate in at least something because he's wearing his jersey and he was out on the field. He just decided not to go to mandatory minicamp. And, these are always very unique conversations to have. I think one from the first thing is, this is the first time that we have seen Adam Peters deal with a situation like this, where he is the guy that is in charge. This is not the first Commander that he has negotiated an extension with. That was with Sam Cosmi, and that was, last year. But this is the first time that we are going to see what he is like as both a businessman and, for lack of a better term, as a leader. You can very easily have an iron fist in these sorts of scenarios. If you don't believe me, look at what's happening in Cincinnati right now with their rookie and their star defensive end. The Bengals are trying to swing the big stick, plop that schlong on the table and say, you can't mess with us. I don't get, at least from the vantage point that I'm sitting, that Adam Peters is doing that. These things take time, certainly. Would you have loved to have that extension done prior to mandatory minicamp? Absolutely. It would have been great for Terry to be out there hanging out with Debo, hanging out with Jaden, catching passes from Jaden, seeing Terry and Debo run routes together. All of that would have been awesome. But this is a business. The guy wants money. He deserves his money. And now it's just the figuring out of what it is going to take to get on the same page. The confusing part to me has been that we don't know what the holdup is. We are assuming that it is the number on an annual average basis? Is it going to be between what Brandon Ayuk and DK Metcalf got, which would land him around $31.5 million per year? Does he want over that sort of money? Is he worried about guarantees right now? Is that what they are arguing about? Is that what they are far apart on? We haven't heard anything. The news coming from Jordan Schultz last week about Terry McLaurin being frustrated, and it was echoed by Adam Schefter that Terry McLaurin is frustrated. That came from an agent. That's how these things work. The agent is speaking to somebody. One thing that I love a lot about this front office, the new front office here in D.C., is that they are never the ones that are sharing this information. It almost always comes from an agent to the reporter. This organization as a whole does a really good job now of keeping things close to the vest. We know that it has not always been that way, but now that is how they take their approach to things. I'm not worried about the Terry thing at all. Again, if we get to training camp, I'll be a little worried. If we get to July 4th and nothing has been done, panic meter is moving a little bit. Right now it's at a 1. This is life in the NFL. The only reason that it feels a lot more monumental right now, that the weight feels a little heavier, is because for about 20 years, there was not really a guy that you wanted to re-sign as bad as you wanted to re-sign Terry McLaurin. That has been like the number one thing. There has not been a guy on this organization outside of maybe Trent Williams, but that thing got away so quickly from the organization that it felt like Trent was never coming back. But there hasn't been a guy that you wanted to re-sign as much as Terry McLaurin that you could look at and say he is as highly touted across the NFL as he is demanding that he is financially. So this is the first time we've experienced this as a fan base in a long, long time. And then on top of that, it's the first time that we have seen this organization and this brain trust, who we very much trust at this point in time, work this kind of scenario out. We're just very new to this. This is dipping our foot in the pool, if you will, because this experience is new. You're not just diving into the deep end. We just need to wade into the water a little bit. I expect Terry is going to be good to go, and I expect him to have a really good week 1 performance when he is in that Commander's uniform. Don't believe these goofy-ass aggregators that are posting stuff about Pittsburgh monitoring Terry McLaurin, that Los Angeles is monitoring Terry. Like, do you think Pittsburgh is monitoring Terry McLaurin after they traded George Pickens, and then they're going to sign Terry McLaurin to another massive deal like they just did to DK Metcalf? That's not how that's going to work.
I hear the Chargers are monitoring.
That's not how that's going to work. Like, use your common sense brain, people. I promise. Use the common sense brain, and good things are going to happen. Coming up next, we preview game number 4 of the NBA Finals. I will throw a wager in there as well to help you make a little teensy bit of money. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day on the Team 980.
All right, the Edmonton Oilers, they finish off the comeback win in overtime after the Panthers tie it in the final minute. Edmonton becomes one of 7 teams in NHL history to overcome a 3-goal deficit in the Stanley Cup Final to win. The last to do it was Carolina over Edmonton in 2006. This is Leon Draisaitl's 4th overtime goal of the playoffs. The Oilers win 5-4. Miami-Dade police have issued an arrest warrant for Antonio Brown on attempted murder charges after he was seen on video fighting with multiple people following a boxing event last month. At the end of the video, gunshots can be heard. According to witnesses, Brown fired the shots after the altercation had ended. AB alleges that he was jumped for his jewelry. The U.S. Open continues underway right now. JJ Spawn sits atop the leaderboard at 4 under. Sam Burns right behind him, along with Tristan Lawrence at 3 under. Victor Hovland and Siwoo Kim tied for 4th at 2 under. The Nats, they get swept by the Mets by a score of 5-4. They will take on the Marlins today at 6:45. Mitch Parker should be on the bump, and Nats on deck at 6:15 with Charlie and Dave on the Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Greg Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC Sports, and that is what's trending.
Debo, I think.
앤드류 네바다가 잘 제어를 했기 때문에 3점을 막을 수 있었습니다. 할리버튼의 톱샷. 와! 쇼타임! 팔로우
I'm assuming that was the Japanese call of the Tyrese Halliburton game.
Close. Korean, but yeah.
Interesting.
It was the Obi Toppin putback from the other night.
Ah, okay.
It was a great dunk.
It was a great dunk. We got game 4 tonight. Thunder Pacers, 8:30 tip-off. This is the only day I like the 8:30 starts. I got to wake up at 4:30 now. So these 8:30 starts on like a Wednesday suck. But on a Friday, they're good because I get to stay up. I don't, take a little nap.
I'm glad we're getting a game 2 nights after the game previous because I hate having to wait
that
full
third
nights.
Day is tough.
It's so because
it's a catch-22 because you like having more time to talk about basketball during the month of June. Because if not, you're just like reaching down into the bag to get football stories. And then, look, we're not talking a lot of baseball in this program, whether it's me or Kevin sitting here. So you like having more basketball to discuss. But there are some days, man, where you're like, all right, I guess I'll find a new show to watch on television tonight because there's no basketball, there's no hockey. I need something.
Like you feel adrift because you could. It's like you're in the middle of the ocean. You can see the islands, but you're just between them. You have nowhere you can.
You're like, man, that island is close. And then you're like, oh, it's not that close.
Yeah, I still got 24 hours.
Now that I'm a paddleboarder, you paddle and you're like, oh, I'm getting close. And then you keep paddling.
How's that going?
Oh, I'm still glad I've been once. The weather's not been good. The weather's not been good. And then, as I told you, I signed up for a half marathon. So I was supposed to go like Thursdays are my paddleboarding days. Although now they might become Wednesdays. But I signed up for a half marathon and all this of a sudden, it's very
your time just goes right out the window.
Because I got to start running. It's part of in order to successfully do a half marathon, you have to run. Who would have
thunk it?
So we got game 4 tonight, Pacers and Thunder. I've been on the Pacers for this entire series. I don't know that I'm going to play the actual number tonight. I'm seeing it at 6.5. The Pacers, the underdog at home. They've been really good as underdogs, but they've been really good at winning as underdogs. They're either winning as an underdog or they are not covering the spread. There are no real in-betweens when it comes to the Pacers in the playoffs this year. I have them winning in 6 games. I bet that at 12-1. I know a lot of people were betting, if you were betting the Pacers, which many people were not because everyone and their mother was screaming about how much better the Oklahoma City Thunder were because they had 68 regular season wins. And again, I made this comment after we had our conversation with Ben. It is the dumbest, most hypocritical thing to say how much that the NBA regular season sucks and then utilize numbers mostly from the regular season to talk about how great Oklahoma City is. There's zero logic in that. It is completely foolish. And because I saw a mass amount of humans doing that to the Thunder, I was like, we are riding with the Pacers. It was the contrarian in me. In fact, Max, I have not talked about this with Kevin. Please tell me he bet the Pacers.
I have some bad news for you, Denton.
How did he go against his own contrarian style of gambling?
Every single game he has bet on the Thunder with the spread. Now, he justifies it by saying, I'm taking the opposite of the public. Completely understandable. But I trust in the public enough, especially during times like this, to recognize and understand when a team has this unquantifiable juice. And the Pacers have that right now. It happened with, I'll forever tie things back to the Caps in 2018. It's just this indescribable sauce, just
aura.
Yes, it sounds stupid.
It's the team of the
aura
team of
is
destiny.
real. Yeah.
So here's the thing: the Pacers only have that now because they won Game 1. They did not have that ahead of time.
True.
Which makes me stunned that Sheehan didn't bet with the Pacers because he is so anti-public. His sharps and his bookmakers normally tell him and give him these numbers on where the public is, and he goes the opposite. So I'm stunned. I know he's liked OKC for this entire run because we've been texting back and forth through a majority of the postseason. I just haven't asked him about the NBA Finals. I've been caught up. He's been caught up. Life gets you that way. If you look right now, I'm looking at. Do we have a book sponsor on this show? I don't think we do.
No, we do not.
So I'm looking at BetMGM. I'm just making sure I'm not getting in trouble. If we were sponsored by one team, one book, and I'll send another one.
No. Win donation. That's our sponsor.
I ain't getting in trouble on that one. But BetMGM says that 67% of the people are betting the Pacers to cover that 6.5. So I'm staying away from that. I don't love the Thunder laying 6.5 tonight, but I'm just going to stay away from the Pacers covering that 6.5 if 67% of people on BetMGM are going that way. My guess is, even if it's not 67% at every other book, if it's 67% at one book, that number is very similar everywhere else. A lot of bets on the over, as you can imagine. These overs have been pretty good so far in the NBA Finals because both these teams score a lot of points. But at 227.5, that's a lot of points that you're going to have to put up. Most of the money, though, is on the Thunder in terms of like money line bets. That's, I would guess, people parlaying, because you're not, if you're laying minus 250, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an idiot if you're laying minus 250. Go to therapy, call the number. Like, you should not be laying a minus 250. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to have a major bounce back tonight. He was not very good in game number 3. And against Minnesota, he had one game where he had 14 points. And the following game, he had 40. 24 is obviously a bigger number than 14. But in the realm of what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is doing this year, 24 is not nearly the level that we've seen him play. So my one bet tonight is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going over 33.5 points. That's what his number is set at BetMGM, is 33.5. I'm betting over on that. I got it at minus 118. I'm pulling it up now to see if that number has changed at all. I hope it hasn't. It has. It's minus 125 now at 33.5. So if you don't love that number, maybe just bet him to score 35 plus points, which you can do. That's also not a great number, though. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been so good when it comes to scoring the basketball. He's the only guy, though, I would bet on OKC if you're looking at points props. Indiana's been fascinating in that regard, Max, because like Tyrese Halliburton, he did hit his point prop in game number 3, but he really makes you work for it. I got him at 20 plus points at like a plus 115. He made you work for it a little bit. He had just 22. They still won, but he had just 22. I am expecting OKC to get the win tonight. I do think they tie the series up 2 apiece, and then you're going into the final 3 games with OKC having home court advantage, but the Pacers still finding a way to win this. They've never lost. OKC has never lost 2 in a row in the postseason on this run, so I don't think that starts tonight, and I think the Pacers can still find a way to beat them without winning 2 in a row. I know I have them in 6, and they need to do that to beat them in 6, but I also have them in 7. Why would I bet the Pacers at plus 500 when I can just split that and bet them to win the series in 6 at 12-1, and then bet them to win 7 in 12-1 as well? I'm profiting either way in that. So that's what I ended up doing. I do think it's going to be a good game, though. I think all the games so far have been good, just no blowouts. I don't want blowouts. I don't want to watch blowouts. If I'm going to stay up, I'm a tired boy. If I'm going to stay up, I want to see a good basketball game. I'm not staying up for like a 25-point shellacking. The problem with Indiana is that they're such a good fourth quarter team, where even if they're down 18, you're like, well, we've seen them come back from something like this. So like they keep me drawn in when they shouldn't, Max. That's my problem.
It's an issue. It happens a lot in times like this, but we persevere.
Put Strober on the mic for just a quick second. Strober, I need you on a microphone. Ben Strober, he is the host of the Locked On Wizards podcast. Have the Knicks asked about Brian Keefe yet, or no?
Oh no.
Oh, Max, relay to him.
Hold on. Sorry. We're having the third mic issue is continues to be a problem in here. Ben, you want to step up to mic number 2?
Well, he doesn't have headphones on. He can't.
That is true. He can't hear you.
Somebody asked him if the Knicks have asked to interview the Wizards head coach.
Have the Knicks asked to interview Brian Keefe yet?
No.
That's so embarrassing. They're asking
Why
for
not?
everyone and their mother, and the Wizards are not getting asked to interview. Oh, that is not a good sign. That does not feel good. Anyway, I like the Thunder to win tonight. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to score over 33.5. Do you have an official playbacks or a bet for game 4?
Man, I can't.
I'm still riding with the Pacers in the series.
You know what I'm going to bet on? I'm going to bet on that we're going to watch a good basketball game tonight. That's what I'm betting on.
God, I hope so. And I'm also going to bet on Linnell Willingham being next on here. He is sitting in for the Rooster. Don't miss the youngest in charge when we get back. This has been the Kevin Sheehan Show. You should get Kevin back on Monday, assuming that his voice returns to him. Hit me up on Twitter at the Denton Day. Let me know if you played my bet and it hits. If it doesn't hit, tweet Max. All right, see ya.